Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the second portion of the City Council meeting of October 12th, 2015, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini?
Here.
Council members Ratty? Here. Lawson? Here. Smith?
Here.
Charlene Bybee? Here. Schmidt?
Here.
City Attorney Adams? We have Acting City Attorney Eiding? Here. And City Manager Driscoll?
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, here we go. 11.5. Second reading, public hearing, consideration and possible action on Bill number 2695 and ordinance amending Chapter 20.29 of the Sparks Municipal Code to clarify the definitions and adding Chapter 20.29.2025 to prohibit any person from maintaining, creating, or establishing a location or structure for the purpose of feeding, sheltering, or providing sustenance to feral cats or attracting high-risk species within the boundaries of the city, providing other matters properly relating hereto. Mr. Adams, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Chet Adams, City Attorney for the record, and I will be making the presentation tonight on this particular agenda item, an ordinance that is intended to prohibit the creation and establishment and maintenance of feral cat colony programs. I began my slide presentation with a land use matter that infringes upon the constitutional rights of property ownership in Sparks. And the reason I have done that is because this particular ordinance that has been enacted by Washoe County creating a feral cat colony program does impact upon all lands that surround a feral cat colony. In 2003, Sparks entered into an interlocal agreement with Washoe County to perform animal control services. And this predominantly related to the field services for feral dogs and feral cats. Now, Sparks committed 2-cent property tax revenues, or a reduction, for the construction and maintenance of a Washoe County regional animal facility. Now, Washoe County recently amended its code to create an alternative form of animal control and management concerning feral and domestic cats. This is the Feral Cat Colony Program. The Feral Cat Colony Program redefines one of the primary animals that Sparks originally contracted with Washoe County to control, namely feral and domestic cats. Now, prior to consolidating our animal control services with Washoe County, free-roaming cats in Sparks were illegal. Sparks actually had a cat leash law. Washoe County no longer intends to use the regional animal facility for the control and management of domestic or feral cats. Instead, Washoe County will now control and manage feral and domestic cats through the free and unobstructed use of the real and personal property of the residential, commercial, and public lands that surround those colonies. Now, when government, either directly or through a subcontract, uses private land without compensation for a governmental purpose, that is an unconstitutional takings. Some people would call it an illegal land grab. And this can take the form of a direct use of private land by government. This can take the form of some sort of extraction from a developer, as far as an unconstitutional taking, or it can be a regulatory taking. And that's what this is. Washoe County's laws now require our citizens, our businesses, to allow their land to be used for a governmental purpose. That is, the maintenance and control of animals. What was once in the facility, Washoe County Animal Control Facility, is now the burden of all of our citizens and business owners. And that burden, by the way, goes to the city and our property as well. Now, as your city attorney, I do not believe that Washoe County has the legal authority to enact a land use statute impacting our residents and our businesses here in Sparks. As a matter of fact, the former Washoe County District Attorney opined in a written legal opinion that the return portion of Washoe County's feral cat program violates Nevada's animal abandonment law. Ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you not to allow this program to invade the city of Sparks until the United States Supreme Court rules that this type of a program is legal and a permissible government use of the private properties used to support these feral cat colonies. Now, one of the biggest problems that I have with this Washoe County ordinance is that the feral cat colony program places the ownership responsibility and legal liability associated with the feral cat colony not upon those individuals who actually create and maintain the colony, but upon the landowner whose property is being used to house, feed, and water these feral cats. Let's put this into perspective. A business owner on Coney Island returns to his business on a Monday morning only to find that somebody has installed a feral cat colony on his property over the weekend. He sees dozens of cats. He is now the owner of that colony because he is aware of this. And he will be responsible for that. Now, this is a picture of feral cats in Hawaii using a commercial parking lot. About the same size as the commercial parking lot in Sparks. And people say, well, hold it, what are you doing showing something from Hawaii when this has to do with Sparks? The point is that Hawaii, just like Sparks, is surrounded by an uninhabitable ocean, or in this case, desert. These cats have nowhere to go. They cannot get off the island in Hawaii. And this is what happens when you allow a feral cat colony program to exist in your community. Now, this was a news account, and I put all the information there. And this guy's main complaint is that, well, ordinarily, this program is intended to reduce the number of cats. But it doesn't. Why? Because people dump their cats off on these colonies. So these colonies continually grow and grow, creating more and more problems for not only the employees and the customers of this that use this parking lot, but if anybody is injured, bitten, scratched, it'll be the property owner, not the person who feeds them, that's going to be responsible. And yes, cats do cause damage to parked vehicles. And there's going to be a reoccurring theme in my presentation tonight, and that is who pays. As a business owner, you may understand that when one of your customers' property is damaged on your property, they are going to ask you to be responsible. And is that something that we want to put our business owners through? Because somebody is going to pay for that damage. And the damage is not only scratch paint, but we've got, there's other incidents out there of cats spraying in people's vehicle, cats eating the upholstery. So this damage can be pretty substantial. Now this scenario is really no less different for private property owners as well. And you're the owner on Coney Island. And you say, hey, get this colony off my property. What are you going to be told? It's totally legal. I can keep this colony on here. So if you call Washoe County Regional Animal Services and you ask them, hey, would you come out and get rid of this colony for me? They're going to tell you no, unless those cats are sickly or potentially infectious, we're not going to pick them up. The business owner is also going to be told that these feral cats are exempted from Washoe County's nuisance ordinance. So what does that mean? That means when the cats are using the business property as a latrine, when the cats are yelling and fighting, that the business owner has no recourse with Washoe County. Instead, the business owner will be told to call Nevada Humane Society for assistance. And this is just what happened last Friday. Joe Hart, resident, called Joe and says, I got a problem with the feral cat. Who do I call? He said, I called Nevada Humane Society. Well, first he called Washoe County Regional Animal Services. And he was told, no, call Humane Society. And the guy called the Humane Society. And he was told by the Humane Society to call back to Washoe County Regional Animal Services. And the guy was frustrated. This whole program is nothing but a lack of accountability. It's not the people who create the problem. It's not the people who maintain the problem. And when your constituents call you, and in my staff report, I have included numerous occasions where citizenry have called their elected officials to complain about this, and their elected officials say, sorry, there's nothing we can do about it. Finally, the business owner on Coney Island takes matters into his own hands and collects and or disposes of the feral cats. The business owner could be subject to criminal prosecution by Washoe County for animal cruelty or animal abandonment itself. So you can understand why the business owners and the residents are going to be pretty frustrated here. Now, as a governing body, we're entrusted to protect the property rights of our citizens and to maintain public safety. Aligning ourselves with Washoe County and permitting the use of private land to support feral cat colonies is not only a violation of private property rights, but it also represents a potential danger to the health, safety, and welfare of our community. The Sparks' property owners sacrificed to purchase their land and are expected to maintain their property in accordance with our code provisions. Property owners rightfully expect certain protections from their tax dollars, including the right to be protected from trespassing feral animals. This ordinance is being presented tonight has everything to do with protecting Sparks from land use decisions made by Washoe County that impact our community, protecting the real and personal and public property rights and safety of our citizens. There is no disputing the fact that free-roaming feral cats cross upon and use the properties that surround the feeding and watering portion of the colony. So the question becomes, and property rights aside, and unaccountability aside, is this a dangerous land use that will detrimentally impact the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens? I picked these slides because they show the Sparks Marina and Powell Park. These are perfect locations for feral cat colonies. They're easily accessible. People can bring the cats food. People can bring in more cats. And as you can tell, these cats will soon be interacting with our children and citizenry who use our facilities. And what happens when one of our citizens is injured by a feral cat? What are you going to be told? There's nothing you can do. Let's look at the feral cat fact sheet here. And I hear some chuckling in the back, but I have provided you with scholarly articles, containing scientific proof for all of these statements. Feral cats are an invasive species. The average free-roaming range of a feral cat is 149 acres. Feral cats are a significant public health threat and are a source of several zoonotic diseases. Reported rabies in free-roaming cats has increased, while reports in rabies in dogs has decreased. And that makes sense because dogs are required to be confined. And because they are confined, they are not intermingling with or fighting with or coming into contact with those animals that do carry and transmit rabies. Feral cats, on the other hand, are free roaming. And during their daily travels and nightly travels, they're coming into contact with these, what we call vectors or reservoirs. Now, here's something I have heard presented to the City Council on a couple of different cases. And Julia, you're on the Board of Health, so you should know about rabies and the difference between a vaccination and an immunization. And in order for a cat to actually be immunized from rabies, they have to receive a shot early on, and then they have to receive booster shots. And that's part of Nevada law. But all you've heard about is that initial vaccination, rabies vaccination, which is not good for 3 years, as you're being told. The food in feral cat colonies changes the natural pattern of wildlife and attracts foreign animal species. That is a stone-cold fact. It's the caretakers who create and maintain these colonies, and they are the ones that cannot be held legally responsible for the damages caused by their colonies. Owner does not include a feral cat colony caretaker. Why would they do that? Why would they want to protect somebody from ownership responsibility? Because the law will look to the owner for any damages or reimbursement that's caused by one of their animals. And if these are such a successful program, why do they have to protect the owners from any type of legal liability? The parcel owner becomes legally responsible. The thing that bothers me as your attorney is that our parks, our byways, our walkways, our bike paths are all subject to being inundated by feral cats and people being injured by feral cats. Now, as I mentioned earlier, and if you take a look at this slide on the right, this is a feral cat colony. And these are traps used to trap ordinarily feral cats. But here we have 2 raccoons caught in a colony. Now, my position is that these feral cat colonies attract high-risk species. Both Washoe County and Sparks, our zoning code recognizes what a high-risk species is. They are raccoons, they are skunks, they are foxes, they are coyotes, they are bats. And the reason that they are termed high risk is because they are known transmitters of rabies. As a matter of fact, Washoe County law says that if any skunk, fox, or bat bites someone, that animal has to be euthanized immediately before any tests are done. Now, this is part of a study. Your slide on the left is part of a study that was conducted by the Urban Wildlife Research Project. And what it is, it's a feral cat feeding station with a camera showing all the different animals that use this feeding station intended for feral cats. You've got your skunks, obviously, there. Now you've got the raccoons. Now you've got a raccoon fighting a skunk for the food. And now you got skunks fighting skunks. And finally, when the feral cat actually shows up, guess what? There's no food left for it. As a matter of fact, in this particular feeding station, only 4% of the animals who actually fed from that were feral cats. 74% were skunks, The rest 15% raccoons, and gray foxes comprise the remaining 7%. And that is no different from anything else. We have skunks, we have raccoons, we have foxes, we have coyotes here in Washoe County. Now, as we talked about in our last meeting, zoning laws are indeed appropriate to prevent dangerous feral cat programs. It is legally permissible to prohibit feral cat colonies in zoning districts. The photo is Mr. Liparelli, part of the DA's office, advising his county commission, and they considered this ordinance back in April. He said, listen, if you want to prohibit this in certain areas, you can use your zoning laws. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is totally legal and totally recognized and accepted by Washoe County. All right. Let's talk about diseases. Let's talk about diseases created and caused in these feral cat colonies. The map on your right shows known TNR or feral cat colony programs similar to that of Washoe County. Now, when you transpose the Center for Disease Control reported rabies, you will see that those pretty much cluster around the same area that allow feral cat colonies. So it is not a stretch of the imagination when I tell you that feral cat colonies typically result in some type of rabies reports. And I've also heard in here that, well, we haven't had a report of a rabid feral cat biting a citizen since 2002 or 2006. Well, here we go. How about last November? A little boy was scratched by a feral cat with rabies. And see where he was bitten? At a park. Did you know that rabies is the most fatal disease on earth? Rabies is more fatal than Ebola, where 4 out of 10 people survive. Rabies has a 99.9% mortality rate. A 3-year rabies vaccine administered to a feral cat is good for only 1 year unless the cat receives a booster. That means that the cat has to be caught or trapped a second time. Practically impossible because feral cats become trap shy pretty quick. Practically impossible because how do you identify which cat received the rabies vaccination initially? Now, let's look at this little boy. And let's get back to my main theme. Post-rabies exposures for humans requires 5 shots. Just to manufacture the serum or the globin or whatever you want to call that is $4,089. This doesn't include a tetanus shot. It doesn't include hospital fees, wound cleaning fees. So who is going to pay for this little boy? Who's going to pay that $4,000? Do we expect our residents, our citizens, to pay this? Because if your child is bitten by a feral kitten, and they come home and they tell you that they've been bitten, you are not going to know if that kitten was rabid or not, are you? And because rabies is the most deadly disease on earth, you're going to take your child down to the hospital and have him or her treated. Again, who pays? You've got your child out of school, you've got your child going through the pain and suffering. Matter of fact, the World Health Organization indicates that 4 out of every 10 deaths due to rabies are in children younger than 15 years. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because I've got up here, cats are the bridge between wildlife and rabies. What does that mean? people and children are not going to try and pick up a raccoon. They are not going to try and pet a skunk. But they will try and pick up a feral kitten. And if that feral kitten is in fact diseased, there's a good chance that that child is going to catch something from it. And while I got a picture of the raccoon on there, don't think that raccoons are all cute and cuddly either. They are a recognized carrier of rabies, again, by both Washoe County and Sparks. Raccoons carry a turbocharged strain of roundworms. They excrete eggs through their droppings. Eggs are very light and they can become airborne. Now, once you catch this, it affects your central nervous system. It can impair your brain functions. It can result in blindness and coma. Raccoons are also carriers of what? Salmonella. And in my handout, I provided you with some evidence concerning these cats that were killed that were euthanized in Eugene, Oregon, because they were infected with salmonella. So when these animals, and you've seen it on the pictures, you've seen it in the video, when they're attracted to these feral cat colonies, they not only eat and fight and spread diseases that are associated with fighting, biting, and scratching, but they typically use these feeding areas as a latrine. So now you have cat droppings, you've got raccoon droppings, and if people walk through these, they can stir them up, and then they become airborne. No reports of rabies since 2002. Check them out for the last 5 months. And this is something else that I provided to you in my staff report. Florida, Georgia, Maryland, Delaware. Georgia was interesting because it involved 2 feral cats actually running out from the woods to bite somebody. And typically what you see here, I know some people think it's funny, but until you've actually had to go through the pain and suffering of rabies that these animals clearly can carry and present, this is why it's a dangerous land use, folks. When these animals are crossing on your business property or your home property, you don't know if they've been infected or not. Toxoplasma. This is a disease. This is not a worm. It's not a bacteria. It's a single-cell parasite carried in what they call oocysts, which are infected eggs in cat feces. Now, these remain active in the soil for 18 months. Now, cats eliminate, and I don't know who studies this, but somebody had a statistic relating to this earlier, but cats eliminate 2.6 pounds of feces monthly, 31 pounds annually. During an 18-month period, an infected cat will eliminate 20 million oocytes. And that's just one cat. Keep in mind, the reason that this is so dangerous is because these cats are concentrated in a particular area. And it's that concentration that makes the danger that much greater. It's that concentration that makes the spread of disease within that colony that much easier. Now, I've heard people talk about toxoplasma. They said in order to catch toxoplasma, you must either eat cat feces or touch your mouth after touching cat feces. Here's the deal. If cats are eliminating themselves in your garden, okay, the amount of dirt under one fingernail carries well over 100 oocysts. and it only takes one oocyst to infect you. Any subsequent food preparation or touching of the mouth or nose without washing the hands will pass the eggs. But cats don't just use your garden, do they? They use your lawn. So when you walk across your lawn, you have a good chance of picking up cat feces from on the bottom of your shoe. And what do you do with that? You bring that into the house. Now, if your house is like mine, you've got dog toys, you may have some kid toys, and the kids are playing with the toys, touching their mouth, putting the toys in their mouth, chewing on the toys. That's how it's transmitted. Well, in that case, just wash your hands to avoid toxoplasma, right? That's all you have to do. That's wrong. That's wrong. Feral cats eliminate wherever it's convenient for them, wherever it's soft, wherever they can dig, wherever they can get into. Now, you just approved earlier chickens in the backyard. Okay? So if you have a feral cat that eliminates in, say, your chicken feed, if you have farm animals and you have feral cats that eliminate themselves in the hay, and then that hay is fed to the farm animals, those farm animals acquire the toxoplasma parasite. And when you eat the meat from those animals, you then acquire toxoplasma as well. And when you eat the chicken that has been infected, you acquire toxoplasma as well. So it doesn't make any difference how often you wash your hands. You can still get this. Did you know that chickens are a very effective host for toxoplasma? The highest prevalence of toxoplasma was found in chickens raised in backyards. Now, what is this toxoplasma? What do you get? Well, certainly, if you're a pregnant mother and you catch toxoplasma, you run the risk of having a deformed child. Toxoplasma is a parasite that just kind of goes around your body until it finds something to hang on to, and sometimes it hangs onto the back of your eye, and it causes scarring in your eye, and you get blind. You suffer from blindness. Sometimes those parasites attach to your brain. Again, deafness, birth defects, mental retardation. Within the last 14 months, they've correlated toxoplasma with suicide. Johns Hopkins has found that there is a correlation between toxoplasma and schizophrenia. And this is really bad with those homeless individuals who have to live, who are fortunate or unfortunate enough to live next to a feral cat colony. Because if those feral cats have got this parasite in them. And the homeless people will, use your grills there in your park. Cook up those feral cats and eat them. It will catch them there. And schizophrenia, who pays for that? Medical diagnosis, lifetime medical care costs, shortened life expectancy, loss of protection in society, nearly $1 million. Who's going to pay for that? Because a feral cat used your food source, used the food source of one of the animals you ate as a bathroom. And this is exacerbated when feral cat colonies are placed near schools or parks. They will use the dirt, the sand, whatever the loose soil is. So now you've got your kids coming home, bringing this home with them. Cat scratch fever. Great song, wasn't it? This is a bacteria. And it's transmitted to cats' claws from flea feces. So when cats scratch themselves, they come into contact with the fleas that are on them. And I don't think anybody has ever told you that these feral cats do not have fleas or mites or ear mites or any of the other parasites associated with animals. And this typically involves 4 months of swollen lymph nodes, kids away from school, adults away from work, pain and suffering for all. And again, who pays for the medical bills? Who paid for this child's medical bills who got scratched and infected with cat scratch fever? Again, do we expect the parents of the children in our community to take this on top of everything else? How many feral cats are in Washoe County? Nobody knows. In his comments to Washoe County last April, the former CEO of NHS said that there's about 90,000 free-roaming cats in Washoe County. There's 15 to 20 large colonies, hundreds, maybe thousands of smaller colonies, but nobody knows. I asked Washoe County, how many feral colonies do you have in here? Because your law requires you to, take all these reports and from all these different people. And they said, well, we don't know. But if Kevin Ryan is correct, and even 1% of those 90,000 feral cats in Washoe County have any type of toxoplasma, over that 18 months that toxoplasma is effective, those cats are going to deposit or eliminate over 14 tons of cat excrement with over 20 million oocysts, and you only need one. Now, Community Cats, on the other hand, says, well, there's only 25,000. So we don't know. And my point is this. Nobody knows how many cats, if any, cat colonies are even in Sparks. So when you hear, hey, we're going to have to get rid of all these cats, ask them, how many cats are there? Besides, the whole purpose of this, the cornerstone of this program, is to be able to trap these animals. So if you do enact the ordinance tonight, there should be absolutely no problem to trap those few cats that may be in Sparks and move them into Reno or back to Washoe County, where they're more than welcome there. Now, here's the deal. We contracted with Washoe County for animal control services. Washoe County has since redefined the term feral cats. They're deemed to be free roaming, and Washoe County Regional Animal Services will not pick them up. Now, you can share the authority, but you cannot abdicate the responsibility. And Washoe County had a responsibility to the city of Sparks to manage and control our animal population. And simply by redefining what a particular animal is, Washoe County has said, we're not responsible for that anymore. Well, I would submit to you, especially in light of that reduction of 2-cent property tax, that we have paid Washoe County to take care of these things, and that they have, in fact, abdicated their responsibility to protect the citizens and businesses of Sparks. And there's a problem. One of the letters you received in support of this ordinance, asking you to enact this ordinance, was provided by the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And remember my scenario earlier about the Coney Island businessman? Remember that slide in there from that guy that talked to Joe Hart? And in my staff report, I pointed out all these other communities that have had nothing but problems with feral cats invading their land, and the governing body could do nothing about it. What did these people do? Just what PETA said that they did. They go out and they react and they try and take care of the problem themselves. They burn these cats alive, they skin them, they poison them, they shoot them, Your photo on the left is from a veterinarian, tweeted, "The only good feral tomcat is one with an arrow through its head." And you will see that that cat's legs are still up in the air, which means that it was still alive when that photo was taken. This is the type of torture that these poor animals go through because people are frustrated with their otherwise natural behavior. The photo on the right, there are so many feral cats in Australia that they've opened up a hunting season. So not only are these cats expected to suffer through winter and disease and bodily functions, but you can drive down the road just about any day and you can see them on the side of the road. They've been hit by cars. Down in Vegas, some guy shot a feral cat to the head with a pellet gun. So people get frustrated. Why? Because somebody has abdicated their responsibility to manage and control animals. And if Washoe County is not going to do that, then please don't let them bring their program into our community. It's admitted. These cats are in our industrial and residential neighborhoods and parks and business districts. Unlike typical zoning ordinances that we have that allow for conditional permitting of uses, Sparks cannot control the third-party responsibility for overseeing feral cat programs. Folks, that's what we do with our zoning code. We protect adjoining properties from whatever use is going on. Again, there are more examples in my staff report. But California, the number of cats increasing in Perry Sound, damaging not only people's property but vehicles. The stench of cat urine with scars on their skins where the fur had been ripped away in fights. In St. Bernard, people are unable to open their windows because of the unbearable odor of feline body waste. This is coming to Sparks. Let me ask you, which one, if anybody, in here thinks that just because other communities have not suffered through these problems, the Sparks will not? Why is Sparks special? Why is Sparks not going to suffer through the overburdening of these animals? Why aren't the animals in Sparks going to contract rabies and toxoplasma and hookworm and ringworm? Why won't we? Why is Sparks, especially when many of these cats are being brought in from California with their own set of diseases? And of course, I had to throw in at least one legal case. This had to do with a single cat colony in a village in Montana. And Mr. Zimmerman had been feeding between 30 and 40 feral cats. And the people in the village complained about the offensive impact on the town. Urine and feces had polluted the neighborhood. How their flower beds were destroyed. How their lawns and shrubbery were destroyed. The cat fights at night. Dead cats being found around town. Folks, this is just one. And what did Kevin Ryan said? There are hundreds of smaller ones. If this is the type of activity that can happen with one, again, why is Sparks any different? Why won't we suffer through these kinds of problems? Especially when the people who are creating and maintaining the problem are not owners and will not be held responsible. Especially when Washoe County will provide me with no information about how many cat colonies we have. The structures used in these things, the temporary structures, they're unstable, they're unsightly. Let's see, what happens to the dead cats? Age, disease, and injury. Where are they going to end up? On your property? On your business land? On your doorstep? Who knows what that cat died of? This last one is probably the most egregious. Freely roaming abutting parcels without any supervision, causing property damage to cars, landscape. The unseen damages are the odor, the noise, and the disease transmission. Unlike a scratch on a car or a spray on a car seat, where you can see the damage, this is the unseen damage. This is a feral cat colony. These are the temporary structures. And so when you get tired of what these cats are doing, and some states do have nuisance laws, unlike Washoe County, who repealed theirs as far as feral cats go, these people simply pick up and move down the road. This is not a naturally occurring condition. It's an artificial condition created by people. Colonies have an adverse, disproportionate impact on our surrounding properties, which is not compatible with surrounding residential and commercial land uses. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we use our zoning laws, to control the use of land to minimize adverse impacts caused to surrounding landowners. Due to the negative impacts of temporary structures, free-roaming cats damaging and befouling surrounding residential and commercial property, attracting high-risk species, the spread of disease, and the threat to the overall health, safety, and welfare of our community, the governance of feral cat colonies falls within the philosophy and the jurisdiction of our zoning laws and should be included in the revisions of Title 20. But you don't believe me. You're going, who is this guy sitting around here? See, my job as your city attorney, I don't have a personal dog in this fight. I knew you'd like that one. Hold up applause. But as your attorney, I have to take a look at what these laws are doing to us, especially when Washoe County passes a law that impacts the land and the land uses in Sparks. But let's take a look at what the United States Air Force has to say out of Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. Well, hold it. Stray animals are a problem. You know, you provide food and water to stray animals. That's not in the animal's best interest. You allow these animals to roam freely. That's not good for them either. And because they live in close association with humans, either by scavenging or because people feed them, stray animals are exposed to diseases, starvation, environmental hazards, attack from other animals or vehicles. Sound familiar? Once again, the United States Armed Services recognizes that these animals create and pass and transmit diseases that can be fatal to both humans and their pets. Scratching, biting, small children and elderly. Wow, I seem to have said that before too, and that's certainly in the staff report, huh? Anybody can be physically scratched or bitten by a stray animal. Do you think that little kitty that's 15 feet away from you cannot attack you before you have a chance to react? This is what the government says. Don't give food or water to uncontrolled cats. As a matter of fact, if you feed uncontrolled cats, you can be subject to discipline. So when I tell you these things, don't just sit around and say, well, who's this guy, the city attorney? Look at the people that I've provided you with. Look at those scientific studies. If you don't think that what I'm telling you is correct, and that's all I've asked any of you to do is take a look at some of those links that I provided you with in my staff report. Are there any questions of me?
Questions? Okay. No. This is not time for the public. You'll have your chance coming up. under public comment. Questions, anybody? Okay, I guess we'll go into public comment. Trying to control myself here. Okay, public comment. It's not public question and answer period, okay? If you've got a question, ask it. Someone from staff, if they have the answer, can give it to you out in the hall or later on. This is not public question and answer. This is public comment. We're going to take your public comments. Please be respectful of other people's opinions. Whether you believe what they said or not, that's not what we're here for. We're here to hear your opinion. State your opinion clearly. That's fine. That's what we're here to listen. If you've got a comment that somebody else has made, make it quickly, and let's get on to the next person. We want to make a decision sometime tonight. So it's a long and tedious, as you can tell by the presentation we just had. It's going to be a long and tedious meeting, so let's try to speed it up as much as we can. Again, no laughing, no clapping, no none of that. This is not something like that. Make your comments and let's move on. So I'll call you one at a time. You'll have 3 minutes. I will call a name and then I will call another name right behind it so you can be ready to speak if you're next on the list. First I have Karen Boger, followed by Mindy Elliott. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council members. Karen Boger, for the record, retired school teacher and half a century worth of volunteer advocacy for wildlife and public lands with various conservation organizations. I know I've written to you twice before, so I'm going to try to make this sweet and short, and my long list of reasons why this ordinance is a good idea is coming to you just as an appendix this next time. But to make it brief, I would like to state that I believe that this ordinance is both the right and humane thing to do. It's the right, humane thing for the cats because there is no peaceful death when you're living a life out on your own. It is the right and humane thing for our wildlife because our wildlife, the birds, reptiles, amphibians, small mammals, are decimated to a vast degree by feral cats. By some estimates, up to 20% of loss of songbirds is due to feral and free-roaming cats. It is the right and humane thing to do for humans and other animals so that we are not willfully exposed to risk of serious disease. I believe there are positive solutions to the problems of feral cats, and one would be sanctuaries that are entirely self-contained and maintained on private property in an area that could be zoned for such a thing. And it's not all that expensive. I myself, as a 70-year-old, put up my own fence for my cats with just chicken wire and some stakes, and it worked very well and cost me about $50 plus sweat equity. And I'd like to say that I am a lifelong cat owner and lover, and I just believe that this is the right thing to do for cats, for wildlife that belongs to all of us, and for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Elliott, followed by Trish Schwain.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and I thank you for providing me an opportunity to speak. My name is Mindy Elliott, and I'm a proud board member of the Nevada Humane Society, and I am a personal small business owner. I'm here today representing the Nevada Humane Society Board of Directors, and in the audience with me are members of the board, Chris Wells, Eric Fryer, and Greg Hall. And I do have a personal dog in this fight. Most recently, NHS was awarded a grant for over $200,000 for targeted spay-neuter to help residents of zip code 89431 to help alter their pet dogs. To date, 1,160 dogs from Sparks have been spayed or neutered under this grant. Additionally, NHS has received well over $2.5 million from Maddie's Fund, PetSmart Charities, and Petco Foundation since 2012. These funds are used to fund our life-saving programs. Should the council decide to pass this ordinance, the life-saving enjoyed by our community will drop below 90%, thereby putting this funding in jeopardy. The NHS currently funds our TNR program through our grants and through our generous donors, of which more than 4,000 are Sparks residents. One full-time staff coordinator for TNR. We also utilize one of our experts to assist with the management of the program. We are also proud that over 1,300 Sparks residents volunteer their time for the Nevada Humane Society. We also operate our TNR program in conjunction with the Community CAP program, who raises designated funds and have their own set of volunteers. This program is privately funded with zero, zip, zilch tax dollars. More than 300 residents of Sparks are currently participating in the TNR program, and by doing so are helping to reduce the population of feral cats. Shelter intake is used as a benchmark of success for the spay-neuter programs by both communities and our grantors. I have provided to you a graph which was emailed to you, and we provided a hard copy tonight, which demonstrates a 38% decrease in the number of cats entering the sheltering systems. I'm asking you to think about one fact. The passage of this ordinance will result in a greater number of community cats and working cats if free, privately funded TNR services are not available. Cats have been a part of our landscape for many years, and the only effective means of population management is TNR. Today, our community has an expectation that services are in place to spay, neuter, vaccinate, and provide ongoing care. I thank you for your time, and on behalf of our board, staff, donors, and volunteers, we appreciate your no vote on this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mindy. Trish Swain, followed by Karen Jacobs. What? Question?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I am Trish Swain. I'm Director of League of Humane Voters, Nevada chapter. We have over 1,500 members statewide at this point in time. And needless to say, our outlook is philosophically totally opposed to this ordinance. Now, you have heard the facts delivered to you by folks from the Humane Society who know what they're doing, who have been actively involved in this program for many years, and therefore know firsthand what they are talking about. So I'm not going to repeat what they have to say, because obviously the facts, they have the facts on their side. What I am going to say, you can classify it as emotional if you want to. A couple of months ago, there was a big wind. The door to my deck flew open, and my cat got out. And she was walking around the neighborhood, and she came when she saw me, and she came right back in. If anybody took my cat, I don't know what I would do. I'm not good at making threats. I'm not a very dangerous person. But I want to tell you that if my cat was, through some bureaucratic misunderstanding, euthanized, there is just no end to how horrible that would be for me and for anyone else who had to go through such an experience. I think that resorting to lethal methods, lethal policies, and I hope that you as a group do not want to be identified with lethal policies and lethal means of animal control. I have passed out to you a flyer for an event we're having Friday, where we are having Project Coyote come and visit with us at the Nevada Humane Society. It's not their program, it's ours. They're just kind enough to let us use the room. And this is another case of an animal being scapegoated. I think it is primitive. I think it is resorting to 2 centuries ago to scapegoat an animal for problems that exist in society. We have advanced thinking, we have advanced philosophy as exemplified by the Nevada Humane Society. Why are we resorting to lethal so-called euthanasia, which I don't know what really will become of the cats if this ordinance is passed. But it is a dreadful proposition, and I hope that you vote against it. That's all I've got at this point. Thank you very much, everyone.
Karen Jacobs, followed by Ardina Perry.
May I use this microphone?
Yes. Press to make sure it's on. Thank you.
Mayor Martini, members of the council, for the record, my name is Karen Jacobs, retired police officer, and my organization is Tactical Team for the Protection of Animals, All Animals, TTPA. I am here today because the feral cats in Sparks, Nevada are in trouble. This is really a crisis for them. I want to hit on the supposed fact that these feral cats are big disease carriers. Nothing could be further from the truth. As stated in the proposed ordinance, Exhibit 3 of the first paragraph, cats are vectors of the avian flu. This is not factual. Veterinarians Foster and Smith, and these are very famous veterinarians, have stated that this is not true. Please see your handout that I have printed for you, which is right here. Birds are bigger problems of diseases. They deposit their feces everywhere, and if the bird is infected and the cat eats it, this is when the problem begins. This cannot be blamed on any feral cats or domesticated cats. Cats are not part of the high-risk species. These high-risk species already come into our cities from the mountains looking for food of any kind. And yes, they will eat feral cats and dogs, little dogs and chained dogs. But coyotes, bats, skunks, raccoons, squirrels, mice, and rats these are the species bringing these diseases to the feral cats, if there are any diseases to be brought. It is rare for a cat to give a pregnant woman toxoplasma. The cases for this are very rare. Who would have an unsocialized feral cat living in their home? We are talking about the feral cats today, and this is in your proposed ordinance. For a feral cat to give rabies, he would have to get it from a high-risk species through saliva or a bite. Bats are the biggest carriers. I will end this with saying I hope this proposed ordinance is denied. Let us expand on the TNR program that is in place already. But most of all, let the feral cats live out their lives in Sparks, Nevada, and elsewhere. I would also like to bring to your attention financial impact none. This is on the front here. There is a huge financial impact. There will be a huge financial impact. The Humane Society has stated that they will lose 90% of their grants. This means they will probably have to close their doors or their services will be very small. I get services from them. I'm doing programs with them. I hope that you will not do anything with this proposed ordinance. This is from the mind of a feral cat. See my ear tip? Means I am fixed. I am not feral, just free roaming. I have a good life.
Wrap it up, Karen. That's 3 minutes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Ardina Perry, followed by Tom Dinsmore.
Again, wake up, Ron. For the record, Ardina Perry. I understand you are under pressure from outside factions currently using our land for gain, and I can appreciate that. My concern is that you may select the politically expedient non-solution, and while appeasement may seem the easier short-term option, be aware that currently 138 communities of the alleged 250 who have adopted TNR in the entire United States are now in the process of repealing this program, most notably Washington, D.C. I would remind you that you were elected to represent the health and safety as well as the fiduciary interest of all of the interests of all the residents of Sparks. This is not just about the cat feeders, who may be indeed 300 alleged Sparks residents. Assuming there are, as claimed, 300 feeders, that means it is potentially a larger disease problem and destruction than we realized. Having said that, looking at Sparks' 90,000 plus population, the cat feeders total 0.003321%, or less than 1/3 of 1% of the citizens of Sparks. Therefore, Sparks has 99.66333% of the population who not only do not feed cats on other people's land, but are probably not aware that other people are using their land to support and feed cats. I have heard some people say they support it, but when asked if they want it next door or on their home or on their business, they say, oh no, not here, out where there's room. So my conclusion is TNR is supported somewhere else. You can vote to allow this illegal practice per Washoe County District Attorney to continue permitting the erosion of property rights and public safety, but you can no longer pretend that you don't know better. And that is where it will get very messy when the Vigoro hits the mix master. There hasn't been a huge problem yet because everybody's staying under the radar. How am I doing? I'm pretty good. Because everybody's staying under the radar. However, with codification, you're going to see more people coming forward. You're going to see more colonies than you've seen in the past. I want to thank Chet for a wonderful presentation. I've been documenting this for years, and I couldn't find him in a lie. I want to commend the council for keeping it together. It hasn't been that easy. And thank God we haven't deteriorated to the point of where we go, yay, yay, when something passes. So, good job.
So I have here Tom Dinsmore did not want to speak, but in favor. Is that correct?
I would if I had an opportunity.
Pardon me?
I would like to speak.
You're up. Come on. Followed by Sandy Tadero, also has wish not to speak, but in favor. Is that correct? You want to speak? Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm a business owner, and there are roughly 3 feral cat colonies that we've been taking care of for 4 years. And there's not been one incident of a disease problem. These cats are fed daily, and sometimes more often than that. They have not created any kind of a mess or problem for our business. We have probably 3 acres of property, and we've tried to enhance the area adjoining properties, mainly the city property. But I don't think the presentation by the city attorney is doing justice to the city of Sparks, because most of the examples he gave are of cities outside your jurisdiction. And they have a different mentality, they have a different type of residential structure, and they don't have the outlying real estate that's uninhabited that Sparks has. So the rules for Sparks are somewhat different than the examples he gave. And all that garbage he relayed out about the disease, I think, is totally unsubstantiated as it pertains to the cats in this city limits areas of Sparks. So I hope you guys can vote against this or not do anything with this proposed amendment, because it has some downside consequences. There's going to be a funding loss to the community. You're going to see some vote changes, and there's going to be a lot of people not real happy about this. So far, there's been no disease case in Sparks because of the feral cats. I think caution should be used. As the city ordinance is written, there is a legal repercussion that your city attorney hasn't discovered yet, but he will if this goes through. There will be a possible case of somebody filing a suit against this. And there is some question about what the city's limits are of Sparks, because you do have some adjoining federal lands. And there is a barrier that encompasses the federal lands and the state lands that the city doesn't have jurisdiction over. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Sandy, you don't wish to speak? But it says here you're in favor of this? No. Exactly, you're in opposition, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Rex Fleurs, I can't. Followed by Melody Headley.
Good evening. I'm Rex Flowers, representing Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife. We are in favor of this ordinance. We feel that there is no need for feral cat colonies. I've written to you on numerous occasions why we're against it, the unintended feeding of vectors, spread of disease, the hardship on wildlife. Cats are a predator, and everybody wants to take care of predators, and they don't realize what they do to the prey. The Truckee River Corridor is home for a number of sensitive wildlife species, and having these feral cats around creates a problem for that wildlife. At the very least, there should be no cat colonies on any public lands or within a mile of any public land. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Melody Headley, I have in here. You do not want to speak, or you do?
Yes.
Okay, come on down. Followed by Deborah McBride. Do you want to speak? Says you don't. Do you want to speak, Deborah?
No.
You're in opposition. Okay, I'll note that again. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Melody, and I have never done this before. This is the first time. However, I do feed a colony of cats, and I do live in Sparks. And the neighborhood that I live in, I have used community cats to trap, neuter, and release each one of them. I keep my patio clean. The cats that come to visit and have something to eat in the morning and at night, they just come, they eat. They don't destroy anything. They don't scratch me. They just come and eat and leave. The area that I live in, people have abandoned their animals because times have gotten tough. I was very surprised to find out that we were having difficulties with the cats because I didn't know. But I appreciate your time today, and I hope that everything for the cats, we can't give up on the cats. But anyhow, that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah McBride, you're in opposition. Thank you. Jesse Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Jessie Taylor. I will take well less than my 3 minutes. Mr. Adams, he may be right about the dangers from feral cats, but this ordinance does not address that. Your ordinance will not do away with feral cats, just the colonies, and that means the caretakers. Ever hear the joke about the man who wanted to drain the swamp and ended up with ass over elbows alligators? Unforeseen consequences. You can make rules that no colonies on public land make sense. No colony on land not owned by the caretaker makes sense, and it might even help. If you pass this, there will still be feral cats out there reproducing because they're not fixed, and you will end up with many, many more feral cats with the problems Mr. Adams suggests they cause. I don't buy that, but it's his presentation. In this ordinance, you are doing away with colonies, the caretakers, not the feral cats. They can't read your ordinances, and they can't count. Can you? Good luck. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I hear Susan Miller. You don't want to speak, but in opposition, is that correct, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Shirley Ingram. Shirley, welcome.
I brought a picture of a feral cat that would never have survived if we hadn't taken care of him. He was abandoned, and he lived to be 22 years old. We had no problems. If he made a mess in the yard, we cleaned it up. We built a house for him. He had a heating pad, and he was fed and taken care of. If this ordinance would have passed, he would have died. So I'm here to speak for all the feral cats that can't speak for themselves. They are precious. I mean, who are we to say that they shouldn't be free? I mean, they were here before we were, and skunks and raccoons are natural. I mean, if they fight, they fight. So what? But I think that the feral cats are not a problem, and I have never seen a colony of feral cats at any of the parks, and I walk 30 miles a week around Sparks. And I do feed some feral cats at the river, and they are very appreciative. So I think that they should have the right to live just like all the other animals. They aren't the problem. And when I walk, I don't see dead cats along the road once in a while, but usually the dead cats are not feral cats. They're ones that people have not taken care of and have let loose. So it's not the feral cats that's the problem. There is no feral cats at Paw Raw or at the marina. I walk around the marina all the time, and there are no cats there. So I would hope that you would have a little compassion for these feral cats and vote this down. So thank you very much.
Betty Jean Perez, does not want to speak, but in opposition. Is that correct?
Right here, I want to
Want to speak? Okay. Followed by Bobby McCullum.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm a business owner here in Sparks. I own a mortgage company. I also have one feral cat on my house that I've had for 4 years now. She's probably the poster child for trap and release. She was abandoned, became feral. The Community Cats program trapped her, fixed her, returned her to my house, which she lives happily as an outdoor cat with her little heated house outside. She just doesn't like people too much. And from the presentation that I heard from the city attorney, I can understand why. It seems like one of the things that was brought up is Florida, Georgia, Maryland, Delaware, Oregon, Hawaii. I was paying attention, sir. That's not Sparks. That's not here. They didn't have Nevada Humane Society. They didn't have the Washoe County Regional Animal Services, who have done a spectacular job turning our community from a place where we had boxes outside that we locked dogs in at night to one of the nation's top shelter systems. That's why I'm here. The loss of funding that could happen if we lose our no-kill status is going to affect every single one of us in this room that has a pet, a dog, a cat, a hamster. It doesn't matter. If we need the Humane Society and they're not there anymore, or they don't have the manpower, or they don't have the money to come out because all of the rest of the country says, oh, Sparks has gone back to their old ways. They kill everything. That's my fear. And the funding part of it is huge. I mean, $2 million plus. I can't imagine not being able to do the things that we do now. Our Humane Society looks more like a pet hotel than a pound. Take $2.5 million away, and it's going to look like it used to. When all these other places, You know, it's like he's predicting a cat apocalypse. Cats roaming the street, biting, scratching. I've never been bitten or scratched, and I trapped my own feral, who's now a pet. So that's probably the main point that I wanted to make. The funding is what scares me. And what if someone picked up my feral cat? There's going to be people in all neighborhoods that don't like cats. I don't think our city attorney likes cats. But there's always a curmudgeon in the neighborhood that the neighbor's cat from 4 doors down came down and did something in his flower bed. So he's going to call the humane or whoever and say, oh, there's a feral cat in my yard. And then they come and pick up my cat and take him to the shelter and put him down thinking that he's feral. How are we going to know who's feral and who's not? Especially if we have a law in place that says you cannot feed a feral cat. So I believe in respecting the professionals. I trust the city council to please vote no. Put the control of this into the hands where it needs to be, the Nevada Humane Society, the Washoe County Regional Animal Services, the experts, and maybe come to some kind of middle ground where everybody's happy. And I know that that's hard, but please try.
Thank you. Bobby McCollum. Next is Alan Soligny.
Hello, council members. I was looking through the items that were attached to this agenda item online. I pulled them off online. And I was looking at Exhibit A, which I guess you're quoting as evidence regarding this petition. And it says the Endow Feral Cat Public Comment Statement. It's not on letterhead. It's not signed by anybody at Endow. Endow has no authority to manage feral cats through NRS or NAC. There is no law that gives them the authority. So I'm not sure why this is used as evidence in the case. There's some unanswered questions about this ordinance. What if a Sparks resident puts out food and water in her backyard for birds, and a feral cat comes and eats or drinks? Is that person subject to a citation? That's not clear. It appears they would be. I think you're pitting neighbor against neighbor in the reporting of violations, and that's going to be a big problem. What are you going to do with the existing feral cat colonies? What do you plan to do with them? Are you advocating killing feral cats because of this ordinance? If you are, I can only imagine the news reports, social media, and how they're going to report this. It looks bad for Sparks. It affects the image of Sparks, could affect tourism. Some of the evidence that was brought in this case, Section C in the analysis section, linking feral cats to rabies and bubonic plague. The cases cited related to one bat and one chipmunk. Somehow, the person who wrote this jumped without any documented evidence to include feral cats in Nevada. I think it's irresponsible to spread fear among people with no factual data to back it up, and there isn't in this case. A feral cat is not a high-risk species as defined in WCC 55.010. So who's going to investigate these complaints that you're going to receive from citizens in Sparks? Are the Sparks police going to be called out to investigate? How much is it going to cost the city to enforce this ordinance? I don't know that you've thought about the cost related to investigation of complaints, issuing citations, and defense against lawsuits that may occur. I think this bill is nothing more than an attempt by a few persons to frighten people and to accomplish their personal goal of killing feral cats. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Soligny. And next would be Fred Volz.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Alan Soligny. I read and listened to material being advanced by proponents of this ordinance, and frankly, much of it has little to do with feral cats in our community. For example, the notion that feeding or managing feral cats has brought an epidemic of rabies-carrying raccoons to our neighborhoods makes little sense. The same folks could make an argument to ban tourists. Tourists carry large varieties of human diseases, some from foreign countries. Tourists are much more likely to have human contact, and tourists bring crime to our community. Okay, you say we need more tourists, but we don't need more feral cats. I agree. But whoever assembled the list of diseases cats can get and all of the so-called problems associated with feral cats really scraped the barrel. In the past 55 years, only 2 cases of human rabies have been attributed to cats in our country, let alone in Sparks. And the experts who point to a study claiming billions of birds are killed by feral cats every year fail to mention the estimate included the supposed activities of 90 million domestic house cats who are allowed outside. Feral cats, especially ones that are unfed, will seek a source of food. This is true, but the wild estimate of plus or minus 2.3 billion birds consumed is even more suspect when thinking of Sparks. Experts now admit much of the predation of birds by cats and other species is done in places with year-round warm climates and in forested landscapes. One thing I can guarantee you is that feral cats provide a useful service in keeping down huge numbers of gophers, mice, voles, and other rodents in our community. I have witnessed this firsthand, and I've spoken to business owners who have benefited. The material you have been presented, vilifying feral cats, goes on to describe what happened at an irresponsibly placed feeding station to a feral cat found in Maryland, one in New Jersey, one in Delaware, one bat in Washoe County, a chipmunk at Lake Tahoe, and every other conceivable type of incident, whether involving a feral cat or not. But the sky is not falling, and Sparks should embrace the hundreds of its citizens who are actively working to decrease the number of feral cats and providing spaying, neuter, return monitoring services. We should also discourage the commercial trappers in our midst who would add feral cats to their list of bobcats and other species to be trapped, skinned, and sold for profit. We do not need the negative publicity this would bring to our economy. The answer is education, enforcement of responsible pet ownership, serious implementation of spay-neuter programs, and support of Sparks feral cat trap, neuter, return monitoring activities. This is more work than passing the proposed ordinance, but the result will be longer, more beneficial to Sparks, and need not pit one citizen against another, one community against another, or sacrifice the goodwill and humanity Sparks has worked hard to achieve. Please vote no on the proposed ordinance, and let's get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Fred Bowles, I have in opposition, but does not want to speak. You want to speak? Okay. Next is Tina Cook.
Yes, for the record, Fred Volz. The city attorney's comments demonstrate a tragic unwillingness to present both points of view for the city council to consider on this issue. 3 still unanswered questions were posed to the city attorney at the August 24th meeting. How will Sparks deal with wrongful death suits brought by cat owners when they are inappropriately killed? Second, who would enforce the proposed code change? And third, how do humans identify with any reasonable certainty formerly owned cats that have been abandoned versus those who may be outdoor cats but belong to a human owner? The city attorney inaccurately claims there is no financial impact with his mass killing proposal. How would this code change be enforced except with new staff and public expense? If one was to impartially characterize the city attorney's comments, his overt intent is to scare the public with all types of potential horrors and attribute every conceivable negative consequence to feral cats, even though there has been no evidence produced of those outcomes in Nevada or Washoe County. The Nevada Department of Wildlife lacks credibility in its stated concern for wildlife, as it overwhelmingly serves the interests of its hunter and trapper licensees, who regularly kill wildlife on public and private lands, including refuges. NDOW contracts with the Federal Agriculture Department to exterminate large numbers of wildlife each and every year without lasting success. Random experiences from other places fail to provide plausible proof, not conjecture, of the cause and effect connection between feral cats and all of the maladies they allegedly spawn. There are no Nevada-specific, scientifically conducted studies to back up their seat-of-the-pants claims. What do we do with homeless people who urinate and defecate in public, creating potential disease vectors, and who are general nuisances? Do we round them up and kill them all? Of course not. So why would such an absurd approach be appropriate for feral cats, especially when they will ramp up procreation to fill the vacuum left by indiscriminate human slaughter? Please defeat the city attorney's fatally flawed ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tina Cook, followed by Vivian Ducart.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, may I just put this here so
Sure.
you can pass it around?
Sure.
For the record, my name is Tina Cook, and I am just a citizen, and what I've passed around is just simple photos of some of the ferals we've taken care of over the years. You'll also notice cremation certificates from Beloved Pets Crematory, cards from my vet Bearing Animal Hospital, and I do not get any funding for this. My husband and I, credit card companies love us, but we take care of all of our feral cats. The ones that are sick, we put down humanely. We do a cremation process. We've been feral care cat takers for 13 years. We have fixed over 250 cats, community cats. We work with their trap, neuter, release program. Those 250 cats, if there was not a program in place like TNR, there would be easily thousands of cats reproduced from those litters that were not fixed. I understand that one of the big things is the rabies. Well, in 13 years, nor me, my kids, or anybody who's been around the feral cats have ever been infected by any diseased animal. I've never had one come and attack me out of a bush. I've never had any of those problems. I own feral cats. The feral cats that we have 4 feral cats that live in our home. They're all the sweetest cats, as you can see from the pictures. I understand wildlife is a problem for some people. They say the cats attack birds. Well, I do understand that is an issue. We issue licenses for duck hunting and quail and doves, so it's okay to shoot those birds, but it's not okay if a cat happens to kill one little bird. I don't advocate any of that. I am a passionate animal lover, and that's why I do what I do. I do not believe I don't go on anybody's property. I don't believe that is right. If you have the permission of the landowner, that is by far between you and the landowner. I, like many other people in here, have houses in their front yards, use straw for bedding. We feed and take care of them. Most of us are actually very mindful of them. We don't want diseased animals. We don't want an animal that's sick, and we want to be humane about it. So I am very opposed to this ban on feral cats because I think, like everybody stated as well, losing the funding for our town, for our city, for our state. We are known as a no-kill community, and I do a lot of work with rescue. I'm a part of a lot of rescue groups, and we are actually like a pride. People are very prideful, and they want to follow what we have done in our community, being a no-kill community. And I think it's something that we should hold our head high up, not, be known as the town that murdered feral cats because they're a nuisance. As somebody else just stated, what about the homeless people that defecate and urinate? Are we going to go and clean them up next and murder all of them? So for all of us passionate people, I am very opposed to the feral ban, and I hope you take a look at everything and listen to everybody's opinions today, and I thank you very much.
Thanks, Tina. Tina, you're not just a citizen.
I am just a citizen,
No,
but I am a
you're-
passionate animal lover
Yeah.
and rescuer.
One way or another, you're a special citizen because you're here, whichever way you think.
Thank you.
Vivian Ducart, followed by Deborah Banks.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me here. In the presentation, we heard about lack of accountability. I believe that all these people, and probably 300 people more, are very accountable and responsible. And the reason we have the TNR program in our community is because we feel accountable and responsible of the probably things that cats could do if they are not vaccinated, and even more if they are not neutered or sprayed. So that's one of the things that the presentation missed, unfortunately. The pictures were very compelling and moving, and we didn't see any pictures of children with cats and people sick that regain health thanks to pets, and so that we missed. Instead, we talk about people that torture cats if they are not killed in the Humane Society. People who torture cats, those are psychopaths. And sooner or later, they are going to be torturing and killing human beings too. So it's a bad example. Why is Sparks special? We are special because we care. We are having a TNR program, so we take care of our cats and our overpopulation. Cats are important because they are also eating mice. And there has been in history in Europe many diseases when they got rid of all the cats, and a lot of people start piling dead because of different diseases, fever, and you know that. If you know history, I don't need to do the explanation. He says, how do we trap a cat? We don't need to go to Harvard to learn how to trap a cat. You just put a bite, the cat goes there, you close it. We don't need special training. Now, I would like to know if the gentleman is a neurologist, because he talks about dementia and feral cats connected to dementia. My husband is suffering from Alzheimer's, and I'm very aware that feral cats did have nothing to do with it. He brought a beautiful picture of the Topoplasma gondii picture, which is so sad, and we all feel sorry for the baby. But I don't believe that if the kid or the mother that was pregnant would have touched poop from a bear, a bird, another dog, or even a domestic cat, would have had any difference. So I think we are being treated like we don't have all our brain put together there when we want to be convinced by something like that it goes, like red herring, go to another area. What do we do if a citizen is hurt by a feral cat? That's one of the questions. Well, we would be very lucky if that cat was neutered, spayed, and vaccinated by the TNR program. So I believe that we are really going against evolution and human direction, and we should be really the example for other communities, especially other countries that are looking at this, because that's what humane means, and that's what evolution means. I think this all ends up to human predators against humane humans. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Deborah Banks, followed by Carol Ann Weed.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Deborah Banks from Sparks. Just a couple comments before I get into mine. If you noticed on that map of where the rabies were, there's only a little bit of rabies in Southern California. The rest are all east of the Rockies, none to the west, and we are west of the Rockies. The orange cat with the arrow, his name is Tiger. He was a domestic cat. He was a pet. The vet who shot him lost her job and is about to lose her license because that was someone's pet. If you have 25,000 cats in Washoe County, that works out to 0.07 cats per square mile. Okay, here I go. Francis of Assisi said, if you have men who will exclude any of God's creature from the shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with their fellow man. This bill is illogical, cruel, inhumane, and expensive. First, Mr. Adams uses fear of disease and the so-called decimation of wildlife as his excuse for this ordinance. But the zoning change will create an increased likelihood of the spread of disease, as well as forcing cats to prey more on wildlife because they are starving. This will happen because there will be no one taking care of them. Then he said in a meeting that he was upset that Washoe County didn't invite him or any city council members to the meetings. This sounds like sour grapes for not getting invited to the cool party when you were in high school. In the original ordinance, he was going to punish property owners until he figured out that he would have to fine the city itself if the cats were located on city property. Now he's changed it to punishing compassionate people and homeless cats. If this passes, non-fixed cats will be roaming the streets with no shots, having babies right and left, and they are all starving. The cat problem will explode. Can you look your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews in the eye and tell them that you voted to starve cats? This ordinance will also be expensive because a kill shelter will have to be built to the tune of $1 million to $6 million, and then the yearly cost of over $1 million to operate, because I doubt Washoe County will help Sparks out. A better solution would be to work to get more low to free spay and neuter clinics in the Sparks area. Let the Washoe County Community Cat Program work and quit punishing the helpless. What is next? Starving homeless people? I want to leave you with one last thought from Arthur Schopenhauer from his book, The Basis of Morality. The assumption that animals are without rights and the illusion that our treatment of them has no moral significance is a positively outrageous example of Western crudity and barbarity. Universal compassion is the only guarantee of morality. Instead of punishing the innocent, try pitching in and helping out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's quite a few names on this.
Carol Ann Weed, followed by Charlene Hadwin. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Carol Ann Weed, and I'm against this ordinance. Feral cats, of course, do not come from another planet. They are the result of the residents of an area failing to spay and neuter their pets. But as was just reported last Friday on the local Channel 4 TV news, the Humane Society is in charge of helping residents to trap, neuter, spay, and return these cats, thereby controlling and reducing the population. Some of these cats could be adopted into a barn cat project, which has been suggested by the Humane Society, or as I am personally aware, it can be advantageous to release cats to private park areas with oversight to control rodent populations. That is being done already in different parks. Rodents are a high-risk species, that is for sure, which carry fleas that may be infested with the plague. This summer, a dead squirrel tested positive for the plague in Tahoe, and 2 visitors to another northwestern park contracted the plague. Feral cats have to help to keep the rodent population under control. Of course, high-profile parks are more aggressive with testing for such diseases, but in our neighborhoods, why encourage potentially dangerous populations of rodents when cats are an effective deterrent, which I had confirmed by a pest control company. Finally, regarding bird predation by cats, in my area where there is a pond and stream and an abundance of bird species, I've seen more bird predation by birds, crows, hawks, etc., than cats. It would seem worth considering for all of you that in the 21st century it would be best and most humane to employ 21st century methods such as TNR when attempting to have the caretakers of animals willingly participate in the control and eventual reduction of feral cat populations. That just seems humane and reasonable, and a no-kill continuing situation in Sparks will be the most advantageous for how you're presented in the public media. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Charlene Hadwin, followed by Linda Planchon.
Honorable Mayor, members of the Sparks City Council, and city staff. For the record, my name is Charlene Hadwin, and I'm the Executive Director of the SPCA of Northern Nevada. Our mission is to be the regional leader in the responsible treatment of homeless cats and dogs, primarily through the rescue and placement of forever homes and by promoting spaying and neutering to control pet overpopulation. I'm here today to ask you to vote against this proposed ordinance. Our region in Northern Nevada is becoming nationally recognized as one of the most progressive areas in attracting best-in-class businesses that will be adding to substantial job creation and population. Do you know that we are also known for having the highest level of humane treatment of animals and are recognized for having the highest live release rate amongst most designated no-kill communities in our nation? Do you also know that the buzz within the national animal welfare community is that the city of Sparks wants to kill unwanted cats in their community with no regard to our no-kill status because of this proposed ordinance? That's the reputation that's getting out there. Do you know that our community has already begun to improve on the feral cat management along with a plan for data collection to lower the population of outdoor cats? And finally, do you know that October 16th is National Feral Cat Day? I ask these questions because those of us in animal welfare and in this room tonight believe there is a better way to manage the feral cat population than what the city ordinance is proposing. Earlier this year, as you heard, many stakeholders came together to express their views for and against outdoor cat population, and that's when County Ordinance 1556 was established. Although it is in its infancy stages, we now have an opportunity to bring stakeholders together to reduce animal suffering in a humane way and ask that you join us in developing out the program within the city of Sparks. I'll pass this bill.
and help authorities to objectively monitor, manage, and measure through appropriate data collection how to reduce this feral cat population in our community. We believe that through collaboration, we will reduce animal suffering and meet all stakeholders' needs than what your current ordinance is proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Planchon, followed by Peter Wolf. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Mayor Martini and council members, I have been caring for feral cats. I have a colony of 6. They're all spayed, neutered, vaccinated, thanks to the Humane Society. There are several programs within the Humane Society. My neighbors are thrilled that I'm feeding them. They stay in my yard. They have a home that was built for them, and I am really against this proposal. I really commend the business people who have spoken, because they said that they are in support of helping the animals, and I think we need to manage and control the animals together. Killing them is not the answer. Most of the people, or I should say everyone who spoke was much more eloquent than I, but I really feel that we can work together and solve this problem, and I definitely am not in favor of this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Peter Wolf, followed by Nicole Nichols.
May I?
Yeah, just give it to the clerk down here, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Martini, members of the council. My name is Peter Wolf. I'm a research analyst with Best Friends Animal Society. Through our public-private partnerships around the country, Best Friends operates more community cat programs than any other organization in the country. This puts us in a unique position to talk about the benefits of these programs, not only to the cats, but to the shelters and the communities served by those shelters. And again, what's being distributed now, I apologize if it's a little bit redundant. It's the letter I had sent over the weekend, in which I addressed some of the errors made in the staff report that was provided. As I say, I'm a research analyst. My area of expertise is the science surrounding these issues. And again, I addressed a number of the claims made by the city attorney in his report. 2 items, we could spend all kinds of time on this. I don't have all kinds of time. 2 items that are worth repeating, though. The infection rate of toxoplasmosis in this country and rabies have both declined precipitously since the late 80s, a time during which TNR has skyrocketed in this country. If there were anywhere near the threat that has been presented in this rather apocalyptic view that we heard earlier tonight, you all would know it. The question was asked, or it was phrased as, this is coming to Sparks. It would be here already. This isn't new. This has been going on for years. Best Friends has a great relationship with the Nevada Humane Society, in part because of the no-kill status that Washoe County has achieved years ago. Make no mistake, TNR is an integral part of that success. And everything you've heard about lost funding, reputation on a national level is absolutely true. As I say, I'm a research analyst. I think it's safe to say, regardless of where we stand on the issue, good policy needs to be based on sound science. And there are only 2 ways we know how to reduce the number of cats. Targeted TNR, as is being done here by Nevada Humane, Community Cats, and others, or the kind of island eradication methods that have been used on small oceanic islands, the largest of which, by the way, is just 115 square miles, about 4 times the size of Sparks. It took 19 years to eradicate about 2,200 cats, using disease, toxins, hunting, all sorts of techniques that would not get any traction in Sparks or indeed anywhere else in the U.S. Also astronomically expensive. For that reason alone, I think it's safe to say that TNR is the best option we've had. And I want to just mention briefly, if you pass this ordinance, we can look to Los Angeles for sort of a preview of what's to come. We don't have time again to get into the detail. Due to an injunction that's been in place for about 6 years, the city cannot support TNR efforts. As a result, the intake of young kittens is up. Why is that important? That's a strong metric of breeding cats in the community. So again, I urge you to oppose this ordinance. There's no evidence to suggest that it would work in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Nicole Nichols, followed by Nora Sliger. Welcome, Nicole.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Nichols, and I am a resident of Sparks, but I'm also the Community Programs Manager at Nevada Humane Society. And as such, I manage the Trap, Neuter, Return, and Monitor program. And I wanted to take some time to talk about how our program works and some of the services that we currently provide to the community, both for the benefit of people and cats. We regularly receive calls from concerned citizens and caregivers looking for help. In these cases, we offer our expertise, our time, and equipment to empower them, both residents and local business owners, to perform TNR. In situations where the caregiver is not able to perform TNR themselves, we have a team of staff and volunteers who can provide these services. I also want you to understand that we are very proactive in our approach. We regularly send volunteers to locations throughout the community. We target these areas where we know there are cats in the hopes of locating a caregiver and working with that caregiver to ensure that these cats are managed. Finally, we also provide assistance to those who contact us out of frustration or with a complaint. Our goal is to work with them to mitigate the situation through a variety of means, including deterrence. And often we find that their complaints and concerns are resolved by the simple act of spay and neuter. If this ordinance is passed, these services will disappear. We will no longer be able to provide help, information, or services when people call. In fact, no one will. There will be no services. Since 2006, NHS TNR program has closed over 40 colonies just in Sparks. In 2014, the combined efforts of Nevada Humane Society and Community Cats has spayed and neutered over 2,300 feral cats. And if this ordinance passes, this is how many cats will not be spayed and neutered and vaccinated in coming years. I am available and happy to answer any questions about our TNR program at Nevada Humane Society. And in short, I hope that you will not pass this ordinance and that you will allow these services to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora?
May I ask just one quick?
Yes.
There was just a comment from the city attorney earlier about using his example of the business on Coney Island about forcing a business that wasn't interested in being a feral cat caretaker to take cats back. Would that happen?
No. In short, no. What we would do is work with that business owner, first to try to understand what his concerns are about the cats and why he does not want them to return. Our goal, of course, would be to find a solution that meets both the cats and the business owner's best interest. Ultimately, in the end, if the business owner said absolutely no, then we would not return the cats to that location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
That question.
Yes.
I want to make sure I got an answer. Yes or no, you would or would not pick up the cat. A property owner calls, says we have a stray cat on our property. Will you go out and pick it up?
We're in the business of trap, neuter, return. We would work with that business owner, to try to help them, to educate them about trap, neuter, return. In most cases, we find that with a little education, they are willing to allow the cats to return. If they were not willing to work within trap, neuter, return, we would provide them our resources and our information, but we would not go out and get that cat.
That's a no, right?
That is a no.
That's a no.
Thank you. That's all I wanted, yes or no. Thank you.
Nora Slager, followed by Margaret Flint. That was a long no.
That's a long, Gina.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. You definitely are. It says right here, you do not wish to speak, and you are in opposition. So I checked with you. You're good.
And I'll take the table.
Margaret.
Hi there.
How are you?
Is this on?
Followed
Mayor
by
Martini,
Carrie
always nice to
Rigby.
see you. Margaret Flint for the record. I represent Canine Rehabilitation Center and Sanctuary. I also represent Nevada Wildlife Alliance, and we are definitely opposed to this. Most of what I wanted to talk about has been covered, what I want to do is say something about the disease factor again, because trap neuter release does allow us to be able to remove diseased animals from the picture. And I happen to know that when these animals are trapped and they're brought in, if they show any sign of disease, they are humanely euthanized. So these are not cats that are going to go back out and keep spreading disease. I want to talk a little bit about when I sit and I toss and turn at night, I think about what better idea do you have? Have any of you really thought about what you're going to do if you pass this ordinance? What's the solution? Your definition of a feral cat. And I don't have the definition in front of me today. I touched on this last time I came to the table, but it also includes an abandoned cat. That's not a feral cat. That's not a wild cat. That's somebody just moved out and couldn't take their cat and left it. So now you're going to cite the little old lady next door for feeding and allowing food and water and sustenance to this animal? How are you going to manage non-target animals? How are you going to decide what cat is feral, what isn't? And who's going to cover the liability when you do something major or drastic to somebody's animal? I talked also about the 2017 legislative session, and I'm going to remind you that we already have a BDR in draft that will address this in 2017. Senator Menendez is going to sponsor that bill, and I already have interest expressed from Jill Dickman, John Moore, and I can now add Michelle Fiore to that list as well as potential co-sponsors to this bill. So anything that you do right now, you may have to come back and revisit. The funding. Northern Nevada, Washoe County in particular, about 3 years ago, was named the safest place in the entire nation if you're a homeless animal. And because of that, Nevada Humane Society receives grant funding, the SPCA receives grant funding, Canine Rehabilitation Center and Sanctuary receives grant funding because we are considered a no-kill community. This would jeopardize funding to every single animal rescue-related shelter organization in Northern Nevada. It's not just about the Humane Society, it's about all of us. I think that's really about all that I have to say to you today. I just wish that you would really consider this because I think there's a lot of unthought of consequences, very negative consequences.
Doesn't work, the air conditioner. Somebody must be trying to put us to sleep.
Sorry about that. Anyway, we would like to be on record in opposition to this. Also, I grew up in Sparks. I went to Florence Drake. I went to Dilworth. I may live in Reno now, but these are my stomping grounds too. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. I have Carrie, it's hard to read the name, Rigby?
Everybody has covered all the topics that I had.
You are in opposition? In opposition, okay, thank you. Michael Snell? Sir?
I'm covered in everybody's most eloquent, and I'm in opposition.
Opposition, thank you. Richard Simmons? Okay, it's the last card I have, folks, so this is your last chance. If you still want to speak, you need to come up and fill out a card, or public comment will be over. Go ahead, Richard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Dr. Richard Simmons, a licensed veterinarian in the state of Nevada. As you know, I've been here many times, and I'm not going to go into all my bona fides, but I will make the comment that I'm only speaking for myself and not for any of the organizations I've been associated with or currently or past. I believe that your attorney, Mr. Chet Adams, has provided you with a superb and well-documented summary of the negative aspects of established and sponsored feral cat colonies, and I urge you to carefully consider the information he has provided. Previously, I've listed for you what I believe the significant facts relating to feral cat colonies are. Potential you've heard it all this evening. Potential health hazards, threat to native wildlife, significant nuisance, and one of my major concerns is that these can be established without the approval of the property owner, according to the Washoe County START statute. Further, I would like to point out that the established feral cat colony supported by a designated caregiver fosters congregation of larger numbers of cats than would be expected to live in a given area, thus significantly increasing the potential for the first three of the issues noted. That is public health hazards, impact on native wildlife, and owned cats and dogs, and the real nuisance factor. I would bet if you went to any area in Sparks that did not have an established feral cat county, you would probably find one or two feral cats. But you would not find large numbers congregate in any particular area. Wild animals and feral cats are definitely wild animals, are seek three things: food, water, and shelter. In the case of unsupported feral cat colonies, the resident one or two cats will protect their territory and challenge other new cats, thus keeping the total number of feral cats in a specific area relatively small. With supported colonies, the overabundance of resources mutes this protective response by resident feral cats, allowing for larger numbers of cats. We do have rabies in Washoe County. There's rabies and bats in Washoe County. In that rare incident, if were to occur, and we have a feral cat get rabies from a bat and transmit it to a human, I would not want to be the ones that support that effort. I know there's been some reluctance to countermand Washoe County's recognition of feral cat colonies, but I submit that their action was ill-advised, and there is no reason that this council cannot rectify the situation, at least for the citizens of Sparks, by passing this bill. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. I have one more from Frank Archuleta. I should have known you look like an Archuleta.
Huh?
I should have known you look like an Archuleta.
What, fourth generation.
Welcome, Frank.
Yes, hello, Councilman and Mayor. Like I said, fourth generation. I've donated a lot of my times in feeding these feral cats, and I take care of horses too, Mustangs, all these foundations. They're my children since I'm not married, no kids. I have never been. But anyways, I really have seen the big changes in our community, Sparks. And like everybody else has talked about what everything's being taken care of, and if there is a diseased cat that we see, we catch it, and then they properly euthanize it. But I get tired. I'm also a business owner, 26 years here in Sparks, and I also I feel we're just doing the best we can. And I have people that come to this city. And they ask, I tell them how good we take care of our community. I just like to see the same people come back. Once again, if this gets out that we're a kill community, it would really jeopardize a lot of money and revenue, tourism. But I just want you guys to think. You guys think real hard, and I really appreciate your time letting me talk, and thank you again.
Thanks for taking the time, Frank. Appreciate it. Okay, that's the last card. Have anyone else to speak right now? Okay, the city clerk has several letters that were sent in. She's not going to read the letters into the record. They will go into the record. She's just going to say if they're for or against the ordinance. Go ahead, Teresa.
We have Kathy Rogers, Barbara Caruso, Irene Connors, Judith Snell, Elaine Voles, Victoria Campbell, Irene Payne, all opposed to the ordinance. And we have Maudine and Lee West. Opposed as well. We have Janet Arobio, who is in favor of.
Okay. Last chance. Last chance. Okay, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action or questions. Any questions? Julia, go ahead.
So, I'm tempted to go through point by point on all of the reasons why I think we should oppose this ordinance, but I think that the audience has done an eloquent job of doing that, and I frankly don't want to put everybody through that. So I'm going to try to keep this relatively brief. I think that what we've seen here tonight on behalf of the city attorney is the worst form of fear-mongering that can take place. There are reasonable concerns, but to have an hour-long demonstration of snarling cats, deformed babies, Ebola, cats with arrows through their head, I think goes beyond what was necessary to make the case. And it actually made me think of when my husband is watching Walking Dead. Like, if this has been going on, we've had TNR in our community for 16 years. If there's an epidemic of the proportions that were described by the city attorney in our community, I would think that I, as a city council member, and you, as my peers, would have heard about it by now. And the fact of the matter is, for well over a decade, TNR has been happening in our community, and none of these things have come to fruition. And apparently, having been raised on ranch-fed beef from Fallon, ranches that were crawling with barn cats, I should have never lived this long. I believe that it would be so irresponsible on the part of this council to step into this space where so many committed volunteers have been working for so many years to create a solution to a very real problem. And that real problem is not feral cats. That real problem is that human beings abandon their pets. And we are not going to change the fact that human beings abandon their pets. So all we can decide is what we're going to do about that. And I think that the gentleman from Best Friends Animal Society gave us a very, very succinct explanation that programs that have been designed to eliminate feral cats do not work. What does work, and common sense will tell you this, is neutering cats so that, spay and neutering cats so that they don't continue to reproduce. It's just plain common sense. And so if we can set aside the craziness and the fear-mongering and think about what's practical, we have an absence of a solution. There's no solution that anyone is bringing forward, and we do not have a partner that is going to go up and round up cats. So if there's nobody out there who's going to go round up these cats, then the second best thing is reducing the population. And you reduce the population by spay and release, and you do it for no cost to the city by hundreds of volunteers who've been doing that for years in our community. And I've said this before, I know that this issue was shocking to many of you when you heard it the first time, but I have direct experience with 3 feral cat colonies close to my business when I was a business owner, close to my home on 4th Street, just down from City Hall, where the cat colony was closed. You know, TNR management reduced the population to the point where it was gone. So it's effective, it's a pragmatic solution, and we don't have another solution on the table. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we deny this ordinance.
Do you have a second?
I'll second the motion with discussion.
Okay. Okay, there's been a motion made by Ms. Ratty to deny the proposal, seconded by Ron Smith for discussion. Mr. Smith.
You know, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You know, it takes an issue like this, a passionate issue like this, to bring people out. And there's definitely a division tonight, mostly to deny this ordinance. But to me, I took care of, I thought it was a feral cat, but it was an abandoned cat for about 4 years underneath my deck. And couldn't get near it, but I could feed it and take care of it. So I know what a feral cat is, but I never, ever heard of a feral cat colony until this was brought forward. And I never, ever had a complaint about feral cat colonies. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to change a thing. I want to keep it just as it is. I will support the motion. That's why I gave it a second. But thanks again for coming. Thank you.
Ms. Bybee.
I have comments, but I have a question first for for Cheryl, for our sitting attorney, a legal question. Is there in our ordinance already, our city ordinances, a mechanism or an ordinance that allows for property owners who have trespassing anything or anybody trespassing on your property, whether it's a cat or a person or another business, if that's in ordinance, is there a recourse for a property owner who has a colony or has cats that are unwanted, that they could take a legal action that's already on the books?
We have the trespass ordinance, which is under the criminal section. So, there's the process for how you trespass somebody off your property. You have to give them a warning, tell them not to come back, ask them to leave. If they refuse to do so, then you may call the police. As far as a cat wandering onto your property, I guess the difficulty there is that there's nobody defined as an owner of a feral cat, as I understand the Washoe County Code. So how you place a responsibility onto who the owner of that cat is. Now, if somebody were to attempt to put the feral cat colony and come onto your property, again, I'd refer you back to the criminal trespass laws. But the feral cat itself, since there's no ownership of it, I don't know how you get back to a person to go after.
Okay, and per Washoe County right now, the caregivers are not considered the owners, even though a caregiver could go on and establish on someone else's, business property. But the caregiver is not considered the owner, so that would not fall under that.
That's my
ordinance.
understanding, is the caregiver themselves aren't considered owners of the animals, because I think they're claimed to be a status of free-ranging animal. So there is not it's not like a dog that goes, if your neighbor's dog comes onto your property and damages your property, you can say, well, that's my neighbor's dog. And with these cats, I don't know how you... Any cat. Except for my cat, because my neighbors know my cat. So, but there is there is a problem because there's no ownership interest, and I'd have to look into it more as to how you'd process it. But that would be the issue there.
Okay, because I'm looking here for solutions that would address some of the issues of the people who are in favor of the zoning change. And obviously, property owners, we do, as a city council and as a city, want to protect property owners and property owners' rights for all of us, whether it's a business or our home. However, my concern I really agree with Councilwoman Ratty as far as there's no solution here. And one of the speakers, one of you, came up and said there would be no solution to the feral cats. We would only be addressing the caregivers, and that's not going to solve the issue. And I guess because in the absence of any solution, the solution for me is trying to be more aggressive in our spay, neuter, and vaccinate so that we can lower the population of these cats. And my fear, if we pass this, is that the cats, who's going to enforce, who's going to pick them up? Nobody has said, the proponents of this are not saying that they're going to euthanize, but what is the answer? The cats will be out there, and no one can spay, neuter, and vaccinate, which for me is the priority of how we address the issue of feral cats. And they will not be gone tomorrow, I understand that. But if we end that practice, the numbers will increase and our problem will be worse than it was today if we do this tomorrow. So that's my issue, is that the spay, and I would really ask the Humane Society and all of you caregivers, I would like to see more mandatory or really a more aggressive approach to spaying and neutering and to the vaccinating. And if you can vaccinate them more than once, that would be even better. But in the absence of that, I don't want the cats to go unvaccinated. I don't want them to continue to procreate, and see if we can turn this in another direction. And that, that is major concern for me that we're not addressing that. So I really cannot support the zoning change because I think the repercussions tomorrow are going to be worse, and we need to work together to see how we can more aggressively address what the issue is and try to truly get the numbers reduced and not just abandon and create a problem worse than what we have today.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a full page of written notes and 2 pages of notes on my computer, and I'm going to try to go ahead and condense this down in a little bit to cover some things. If you know me very well, you know I'm going to be hitting financial, and I'm going to be hitting operational. So I would like to go ahead and talk to the director of the Washoe County Regional Animal Control for some questions.
I think they're here. Were they ever here?
Yeah, I think all we had was Mindy was here representing Humane Society, and there was another young lady here.
And I think that you answered my question, because this is an $800,000 bill we pay a year from the city of Sparks. Our contractor is Washoe County Human Services, or Washoe County Regional Animal Control. That's our contractor. We pay $800,000 to taxpayers' money for a service. Not the $200,000 that's donated to Nevada Humane Society. We pay $800,000 for Washoe County Regional Animal Control Services. They're our contractor. They're a partnership. We talk about consolidation issues. This is consolidation, folks. This is what you get. If you live in the city of Sparks, you have zero representation on this issue. So then I will have to go to, without the absence of Washoe County here, I would really like to invite operational managers for Nevada Humane Society. Nicole, if you could come on up, I have some questions for operational on how this program works.
Let me know if we're getting off the subject here.
Where's animal control?
What?
Where's animal control?
I think it's, someone told me last week that this whole issue is like a bunch of crickets. They're all chirping down here, but the real problem is sitting someplace else, and all the noise is going on, so you don't pay attention to the real problem that's going on, and that's why I brought up Washoe County is not in the room, because it's a problem. Now, for several years in this very chamber, I did a program with high school students. An entire full day we spent in leadership program with 50 high school students across. There were seniors across Washoe County, and I was very fortunate to get to run Government Day. We were able to bring the kids into the chamber here, and for the first 4 hours we were here in the chamber on a couple different assignments. And one of those assignments we had is I just asked the question, is government part of your life? High school kids, they're thinking about boyfriend, girlfriends, and what clothes and stuff they wear. They're not thinking about government. It was interesting to see the number of answers I got. I asked them, to those who felt that government was part of their life, when did government actually become part of your life? And it really interested a lot of discussion. And when you really get down to it, before you were born, government had some form in your life. Government is part of our life. And I asked them a very simple question. Is government good or bad? Their answers depend upon what they had experience of government. And the true answer is that government's neither good nor bad. Government exists. We do things. It's the people within governments that go ahead and start things that are good or bad. So then we talked about all kinds of things, and we gave an exercise for the kids to do, and it was to do a legislative item that we gave them. They got to be legislators for a day. Excuse me, I forgot a note here. We talked about fear. We talked about fear tonight. We talked about that the city attorney is putting fear into people. Well, there's a fear in the room, or absence of fear, in regards to government. Where can anyone give me an example of someplace else in government it's written in that you are exempt from any laws of anything you do based upon an item? Can anybody tell me? In fact, I can tell you right now, the city council is exempt from anything we say or do, we have the protection of the city attorney, except for under one circumstance. And that's when your city attorney advises you that this is illegal to do this, and you do it anyway. Then you're not exempt. You are now out in the open. You can go ahead and take, and fear of government is what we should be concerned about. I'm not going to go into the exercise. The exercise was very simple. We posed a question of bill to the kids, and you had 3 options that you could take. And the bill was whether you were going to mandate school uniforms. Now, I can imagine high school kids would probably have no opinion about this item, correct? And you were able to come up with 3 different things. You either be for it, against it, or neutral. If you were neutral, you know what your job was? You got to come up here and be the city council. If you were against it, you went over to that side of the room. When you were for it, you went to that side of the room. Then you went outside. We did a number, come in and gave it to the chairperson. But the only difference was when they came in a room, we gave them a little caveat that if you're over here and you were against it, you had to testify for it. If you're over here and you were for it, you had to testify against it. Phenomenal exercise with 50 high school kids over 2 hours. And you sit down and you talk to them and say, it was amazing. My friend who can't afford the designer clothes suddenly convinced me that school uniforms was a good thing to do. Phenomenal. How many of us tonight could sit down and argue the other side of the issue? We're passionate. So my question, I can't talk about contract because Washington County's not here.
Is there a question here?
Yeah, there's a question here, Mayor.
I don't know what.
It's
I
way.
don't know what uniforms has to do with an ordinance that we're trying to pass or deny.
It's about whether you can listen to the other side. I'm having a discussion with my city attorney over here. She disagrees with me. I don't know how we're not off the agenda here, but. I can't go to the contractor that we have, but you are the contractor to Washoe County, in which our taxpayer dollars are flowing to you in one way.
No, they're not.
Okay,
For the record, Mindy Elliott, we absolutely receive no tax dollars for this program or any program.
Are you paying rent inside the building you're in?
The Humane Society pays rent.
Animal control, different story, right?
It's an animal control. We pay to Washoe County rent.
And Washoe County writes no checks. There's no federal funding. There's nothing. There's no
Zero,
taxpayer dollars.
zip, zilch. We're totally.
Okay.
Let me get it.
Okay.
I'm on the finance committee. I'm on the board. There is no public dollars flowing to the NHS.
Okay, we'll go there. Now let's talk about operation. A citizen calls, we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't pick up the cat. So let's say the citizen of Sparks comes in and brings the cat into your facility. What do you do with that?
Because the way our relationship works with Washoe County Regional Animal Services, any animal that is considered a stray needs to be taken to Washoe County Regional Animal Services, and they have to hold them for a mandatory 5-day hold period.
Okay, then what happens from there?
Then they come over to we as a Humane Society will determine if a cat is adoptable. We do have a choice if it's a mean cat or whatever, but if it's an adoptable cat, we take all the cats in that we can, and we adopt them out. And we're very prideful of our adoption rate. I am not. Yeah, we're not animal control.
So all animals that come to you get adopted out.
We have
a
94% save rate of animals.
Which means 94% of the animals that come into our facility leave our facility alive.
So how does a cat become a feral cat?
I'm sorry?
How does a cat become a feral cat?
I might defer that one. We have an expert here on feral cats. I hate cats. Ron, just so you know, I hate cats.
Thank you.
I'm a dog lover. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a big dog lover. Fargo the Wonder Dog, from all.
Because I've heard the term tonight from pets to free roaming.
Well, some of them, in all honesty, Ron, when we were, I'm sorry, Councilman Schmidt, sorry, In all honesty, when we were, I apologize, that was insubordinate, but when, especially during the downtimes, people release their pets, dogs, cats, they release them out in the community, and either Animal Services picks them up, or some cats will find their way into, because cats are like a family. They kind of adopt each other, and then they take them in, and they become feral wild cats.
We've already determined that nobody picks up cats in Washoe County. The county does not. We know that from practical experience.
That's a discussion to have with the county.
That's animal.
That's animal control.
All right, so tell me how a colony, and excuse me, and this is not being facetious here, because nobody wants to tell me how these colonies get formed. How does a colony happen?
No.
Can I defer to him? He's an expert.
I'm asking for Nevada Humane Services
Okay.
for their policies and procedures on how they do things. That's what
Okay.
I'm asking for. I mean,
So we already know that pet cats, they may be perfectly friendly and happy, are lost, abandoned. These cats are not spayed and neutered. So now these cats, perfectly friendly, these are not feral cats. They are stray cats, they are abandoned cats, whatever you'd like to call them, but they're not feral. But they are not spayed and neutered. And so what happens is they reproduce. They have kittens. These kittens are the feral cats. They are the ones they grow up with no human contact. They do not receive that crucial socialization within the first 6 to 8 weeks of their life, and so therefore they are feral. They are not spayed and neutered. They have kittens. Their kittens are feral, and so on and so forth.
So NHS does not contribute to feral cat colonies at all. Someone brings in a cat, whether it's to Washoe County, or you don't return that to a citizen to take care of that cat.
We do practice trap, neuter, return, and return is a big portion of that. So we would return a cat that has been spayed, neutered, and vaccinated and no longer reproducing, therefore breaking the cycle.
That's perfect. I need to know, because how does these cats get into the colony? So now, how do you pick a colony to send it to?
I'm sorry, how do
you choose a colony to send it to?
To send it to?
Yes, you're
We return the cat to where it was trapped. We don't just randomly pick a location to send a cat. We return it to where it was trapped. That's the cat's home. That is where it knows its food, water, and shelter source, and where there is a known caretaker that can monitor it.
So there's detailed records?
We do have records, yes.
Okay, and so then I guess there's quite, we've got a letter on file from NHS that this is information for where these colonies at, how big they are, and who has them.
The
is
known
confidential.
colonies. The known colonies.
The
known colonies.
But if you're going to return them, you got to know where the colony's at. I mean, if somebody brings it in, you return it, you got to know where you're returning it to.
Right, absolutely.
You can't just say,
and
I'm
those are
returning.
known colonies. That's an important distinction to be made, because there are many colonies out there that we are not aware of because we are not currently trapping there. We do not currently have an active caregiver that we are aware of, and that's part of our proactive approach by trying to go out into the community where we know there are cats to locate those caregivers so that we can take care of those colonies that are not currently known.
So the moment somebody traps a cat, brings it into you, you're going to return it, so that's a known colony now.
Correct.
Correct. So if you do anything
I'm sorry?
in the neutering portion.
If it is a feral cat, correct. If
And
it is
it's
a feral cat.
And it's healthy.
And it's healthy, yes. A healthy, spayed, neutered, vaccinated feral cat will be returned to the location where it was trapped.
So as someone who represents 92,000 people, why is that information not available to City of Sparks?
It is available.
We-
I've not
we-
ever been asked to provide this information.
We have a letter on file from the city attorneys to Nevada Humane Services asking for locations of these cat colonies and how many's in the city of Sparks, roughly how many cats are here, and Mr. Adams can correct me if I'm wrong with that statement.
The letter that I provided you with was sent to Washoe County Regional Animal Services.
Okay, and they've refused.
Information they were required to keep by law. Okay. That's what I asked.
So now I'll cut through everything else that I have and I'll get to solutions, okay? Because I think there is a solution on the table. I think that, trying to work these problems out, can be done. I think everybody in this room would agree that if we enacted this policy tonight, we were probably not doing the right thing. We're probably being irresponsible here for not coming up with a solution by enacting this policy. I think everyone would agree, too, that the side effects, the unintended consequences of the cat colonies, not addressing those issues would also be irresponsible. I think we need to look at both sides of the story. This is why I talk about the kids that are 18-year-olds that can sit down and talk about both sides of the story and look at what people do. To me, this item is real simple. Let the cat colonies be there. But can we at least go ahead and have a business license for that cat colony? No charge business license. You don't have to pay for it. Excuse me just a minute, people. Just a minute. Listen to the solution before we go ahead and turn it down. Okay? That way there that our code enforcement officers know if we have a problem in an area, that those cat colonies are there, they can deal with that person. You talk about you want to go and talk to the person, we've got to go talk to the person too. If we don't know if our only response as a public agency is one of our citizens call us and say, we have a problem with this cat. I've called Washoe County, they won't pick it up. I've called Nevada Humane Services, they won't pick it up. And the city of Sparks, we have no jurisdiction over this because we gave that up 13 years ago. What is that citizen supposed to do? I can tell you what they do because I've heard what they do. They take matters into their own hand. And that's not the outcome you want. Nobody in this room wants that outcome. I think being able to go through and put some organization on this, and I'm the first one to say I hate government regulations. I'm the first one to hate government regulations. I think it's too much. But we just did chickens that sit in a coop, and we did outlines of how many chickens can go per square foot of lot. How many can be there. It can't be in a front yard. We've got all kinds of regulations on this thing, and then we have feral cats who free roam, 100 acres or whatever it was for a thing, and we have nothing on the books to go ahead and say we do it. I think it's simple. Because all we have to do is just register that we're going to do it. No fee, no cost to it. Can be done online. That way the city knows where these things are at, approximately how many. And you have even a better vehicle because if somebody has to bring in the license from the city of Sparks that says, we got a cat colony here, you're licensed to operate it, you're running it in a very healthy manner. It's very simple. Solution is easy. You got your cat colonies. The city has some assurances that we're going to be dealing in this issue. Our code enforcement's going out. They know which ones on the block have it and which ones don't. They don't have to start a bunch of this. And you're going to get a better outcome. You'll get a better outcome.
And, I do appreciate that you have a solution to put on the table.
Thank you.
I got lost. Are you for or against uniforms for kids? Mr. Lawson.
We're neutral.
Then the decision's going to be yours the next time up here.
Well, up until 3 months ago, I'd managed to live 55 years of my life and never been affected by a feral cat or a feral cat colony or anything other than that. Now, my first reaction, this is a visceral reaction. We have all of our animals are rescue animals. I have 2 cats and 3 dogs, all rescue animals. My first reaction is, what's happening to the cats? What happens in the wintertime when it's cold? And then I learned more and more and more about what you guys do. And I learned more and more and more that the other side, that there's not all these diseases that are happening, and that we see the populations going down. I think that's a responsible thing to do. So for me, this ordinance kind of became a solution looking for a problem. And so I'll tell you what, I got lots better other things to do that has to do with economic development, that have to do with moving people to here and getting employment going for our community. This is not one of the issues for me. So you have my support.
Okay, lest you forgot, we have a motion on the floor. And a second. I've almost forgot what we came here for, but. What? No, I'm not calling for an amendment.
No, I didn't know.
So we have a motion on the floor. I'm ready for a vote. So display and we'll have a vote. Charlene, you got to press a button. Okay, it looks like the ordinance goes down 3-2. Is that what I'm?
No, that's.
My motion was to deny.
Yeah, motion was to deny.
Oh, the motion is to deny.
Deny,
So do you wanna
yes.
change your vote?
I need to change mine. 'Cause
Okay.
It's backwards. in
Charlene is a yes to deny the.
Okay, so your motion was to deny.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I'm-
See, I told you you forgot.
I'm left-handed. I do everything backwards. Honest, I do.
So it goes 4-1 to deny the new ordinance, right? Yes, okay. Before we disperse, I want to recognize Sheriff Chuck Allen. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And most of all, I want to thank you people for being here. You did a good job tonight. You didn't yell at anybody. You didn't get on anybody for their opinion. And I really appreciate the way you folks handled this, because it's a tough one. It's emotional. You're passionate. I understand that. So thank you very much. No closed door session, Steve, I'm going to imagine. Comments? Wait a minute. Shh, we're not done yet. Anybody want comments from the public? Please say no. Sure, come on down. There's always one in there.
I'm
not done yet. A little respect, please.
Judith Snell, for the record. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Council. Many years ago, you lost a mayor by the name of Tony Armstrong, and in his passing, he asked you, Mayor Martini, to please take care of his city. Thank you, Mayor, for taking care of Tony Armstrong's city.
My pleasure. Comments from the city council or manager? Please.
We'll make this
different subject to begin.
Following committee appointments are available for the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee: one member of the residential construction industry for a 2-year term, one member of the commercial development industry for a 3-year term, one member of the construction industry for a 4-year term. All subsequent appointments will be for a 4-year term. Additionally, there's also for the Airport Noise Advisory Committee, 2 members for 2-year terms each. If a person's interested in serving in these committees, they should complete the community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. You click on City Services on the web page, and you click on Volunteering, Get Involved, and you would click on the City of Sparks Volunteer Application link. The Enterprise Fund applications will be accepted through October 16th of 2015, and the Airport Noise Advisory Committee applications will be accepted until November 1st. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Steve. Seeing no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you again.
I don't know, probably more than 20,000, I would assume.
100,000.
I'm going to say a lot, so probably around, say like 1 million.
400.
75,000?
50,000.
I want to say a couple 100,000.
How about 1,000?
Millions. Millions. Hundreds?
I don't have an idea, but I think it's a lot of people.
Probably about 400,000.
Probably 200,000.
Oh, golly. I think it's maybe around 35,000 these days, something like that. Drunk driving or impaired driving.
Texting and driving.
Inattention.
Distractions. Alcohol.
Alcohol. Alcohol related for sure. I think it's eye-opening after moving and living in Las Vegas for the past year how many fatalities and crashes I've seen personally due to alcohol related.
I'd say not paying attention to other people on the road.
Go driving, test.
People are irresponsible in driving. They don't pay attention. They have distractions from like cell phones, putting makeup on, to just eating. See, I'm a full-time pedestrian, so because I'm legally blind. So I've almost got hit several times just in the crosswalk just because people are not paying attention when they turn right.
Speeding, no seatbelts, things like that.
I've heard drunken driving and then fatigue are the two big ones, perhaps.
Someday in the future, probably.
Yeah, not going to happen.
No, not at all. I don't think it's realistic. But I do think that if we work towards reaching that goal, that we will decrease the amount of fatalities.
Absolutely not. This is humanity.
No.
No, not with as many cars and not with, the amount of people here.
Yeah, if people stop using their phones while they're driving.
It's not incredibly likely, but it's always good to strive for perfection.
If we can get it under 1,000, that would be cool.
I would say we could at least cut it in half of what it is now.
I have no idea. 2.
If the number was down to 10, I think that'd be good.
Acceptable would be anything lower than what it is now. Say maybe 1,000.
I think our goal for fatalities needs to be brought down at least 50% in the next couple years.
10.
Under 5,000.
Like under 100.
Less than we have now, I suppose.
Okay.
Zero?
Zero.
Well, you'd have to say 0 for that.
For my family, personally, 0. That's acceptable for my family.
0. None.
0.
0. 0.
0.
None.
0.
0.
None.
Oh, obviously we'd hope for 0.
0? Okay.
Yeah.
0.
0. You leave the house, you come back to it at the end of the day, I feel like.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. That'd be great.
Yes.
It should be, yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Yes. I think there should be 0.
I mean, yeah, you have to aim high, I would say.
It should be 0.
That should definitely be the goal. I absolutely agree. Yes, that should be the goal.
I have 3 tests next week. I'm going to be studying all weekend. Ugh. Are you studying tonight? We can meet up and study together. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. What time? I work until 6. Okay, sounds good. Just text me after. Okay. No!
There is no text, tweet, or call that's worth a life.
One pedestrian death is one too many.
Look up.
And look out for each other.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Sparks. I'm your host, Adam Mayberry. Our first segment is about a swiftwater rescue drill. It's a story about saving lives.
We'll come down right over here. Yeah. I'll come out there with the Carlson board.
Emergencies can take many forms. The Sparks Fire Department trains and maintains 3 technical teams whose members receive additional training in a specific area of need. This is the WET team, or Water Entry Team. Recently, the Sparks Fire Department participated in a drill designed to increase the communication skills needed to coordinate rescues in the water with operations on shore. This real-world exercise integrates engine companies and rescue swimmers to improve communication, which is the key to successful rescue operations.
Communications is very important for us, and coordination between engine companies. In the past, we've done a lot of drills. The swimmers, we do a lot of training together, and all the swimmers are excellent at what they do, but we haven't done the coordination with the engine companies and the command structure. And so this is kind of an integration drill based on communications and the integration of all the parties involved for a rescue.
Okay. Copy that, job. We need 2 medic units. 1 Glendale Bridge, we've got 1 victim in medical attention. Also send 1 more rescue unit down to Rock Park.
The department maintains 3 inflatable boats for rescue operations. Sparks Fire responds to water emergencies in the Truckee River, Sparks Marina Park, and other bodies of water.
The first thing we'll do if we get a call for the river is that the incident commander will pull out a binder that we have that gives flow rates and times on victims or people in the river, and by that we can decide where to set our downstream containment, which is the furthest point that they could possibly have gone in the river based on the water flow, and that closes off our box, we call it. And so we don't have to worry about from that point downstream, they couldn't possibly be there, so it's less that we have to search. And from that point, we'll start our bank search to locate all the victims we have. Our river that we have here has a lot of gradient, and that's defined as a lot of feet per mile that it goes down. So we have a quick moving river, not a huge amount of water flowing, and so we have a fast, shallow river that's very rocky. And the danger there is obviously you're traveling with the water, you can impact the rocks and other things that are in the river that cause injury. But a lot of people think because it's so shallow that they can just stand up and walk out of the river. And that's one of the worst ideas. You just don't want to do that. By putting your feet down, they can get wedged underneath rocks. We call that a foot entrapment. And it can actually break your leg, and you'll be still stuck there dangling off a broken leg in the river. And it's a real hazard with our river. First of all, don't swim without other people there. You don't want to just come down to the river by yourself and go swimming. That's just a bad idea. With our water temperatures that we have, hypothermia is a real possibility and something that can set in really quick. So don't swim alone. If you are going to swim, wear a PFD, personal flotation device, or a life jacket. It just helps you out. If you do get hypothermic, you start losing your motor functions, and you need to have the ability to be able to float so you can gather your thoughts and then swim. Don't stand and walk. Swim to the shore and make sure that you've stopped moving before you put your feet down.
Sparks Fire has 2 other special teams. The technical team is trained in high-angle, confined space, and trench rescue. The hazardous materials team is trained in fighting chemical and industrial fires. Sparks City Fire works closely with local and regional fire departments. Long before the water starts to rise, the City of Sparks has taken significant preparations to protect people and property from flooding. The North Truckee Drain Project is a critical piece of the overall regional Truckee River Flood Project.
Anyway, just a few short remarks from me. I'm so pleased. I've lived here for 68 years, and it's hard for me to do the math, because in 68 years we've had 6 100-year floods. So I think I look pretty good for 600 years old.
A $35 million flood project is underway to protect businesses in the Sparks industrial area. Phase 1 is realigning the North Truckee Drain, moving the water outlet downstream of Steamboat Creek. Engineers expect this to significantly lower flooding levels and backwater breakouts in the Sparks industrial area.
It's all going to be pretty much covered up. The box, it will be constructed. It will be under the roadway we're in right now with an outfall that will go out to the river.
Back in January 1997, the area was hard hit. Floodwaters doing damage to businesses throughout the 2,100-acre area. About 25,000 people work here. The industrial area is a low spot in the valley, forming a natural drain. In fact, stormwater from as far north as Spanish Springs flow into the North Truckee Drain. Making this area safe from floodwaters has been a long-time goal of city leaders.
Yeah, it's been a mission for me since I got on the council in 1999. Like I said, I've been through 6 floods, a couple in the 50s when I was a young boy, one in 64, one in 86, one in 96, and one in 2097, and one in 2006. So it's very personal to me. I lived on a ranch about 3/4 of a mile away from where we're standing. And our ranch got flooded several times. And like I said, it's very personal to me, and I'm enjoying watching this happen.
And you know, while I'm at it, I might as well thank all the property owners around here. It took a lot of work from our staff to get them together so we can get the right-of-way that we needed to do this project and work with us on not closing the road completely, which would hurt their business, and we've done that with the Southeast Connector also. The overall project is $35 million, like I mentioned a minute ago. This project is it's so needed for this whole area. If we flood again, we'll lose everybody in this district, and they may not come back.
They're currently using a forming and shoring system that is it's been around for quite a while, but QMD took it another step in utilizing I-beams for cross members and utilizing a forming system that's called a traveler, which will just kind of like moves forward and moves along. It saves an incredible amount of time, and time, of course, is money. And the excavation is the excavation. However, when they have to put the shoring system together and move it forward, that's where the money's at. Is the shoring system and the forming system.
This drain project is a critical component of the regional Truckee River Flood Project. Phase 1 costs $12 million and is partly funded by the City of Sparks. That's the $5.41 our citizens see on their sewer bills. That work right here. $4.7 million comes from the Truckee River Flood Authority. Phase 1 will take a year. The entire drain realignment should be done in 2019.
But let me finally just mention the staff of Sparks. These guys have done a fabulous job in getting this project ready, getting it built.
Sean Carey grew up in the city of Sparks, served the city for 21 years, and was the city manager of Sparks for 14 years. We're grateful for his service and his dedication to the residents of our city. He retired in April 2014. While his presence will be missed here at City Hall, his legacy will remain visible on the city skyline.
Well, I changed to civil engineering, and that's what drew me into the infrastructure that cities run on. And so much of what people take for granted every day is really behind the scenes. They don't see what's inside the traffic signals, the cabinets, the pipes under the ground. And civil engineering really provides all that stuff. I often say the civil stands for civilization. And I think a lot of this profession has given me an opportunity to use the science of engineering in a manner of art to make sure that we crafted a community that's really has great infrastructure, great parks, great roads, and it's really a pretty special place to me.
Carey served the city he loved for 21 years and helped shape Sparks to the city that we know today. Carey's long and distinguished public service career included work as a civil engineer, a traffic engineer, public works director, assistant city manager, and of course, city manager for 14 years.
Got into the first use of computers while in Sierra Vista, and developed a system to time traffic lights using a modem. And folks may not even know what a modem is today, but we were thrilled to have a an IBM PC XT that was able to communicate over telephone wires and get traffic signals to work in a sequence. It was quite an innovation. And that took me off to Boulder, Colorado, where I became a traffic engineer. And that 3 years of my life led me to want to become a director of public works, which is the person who runs the infrastructure department for any organization. And I really enjoyed that role. And I call myself a recovering traffic engineer from my experiences in Boulder. But being a public works director has been a very rewarding part of my life. And really enjoyed the opportunities here in Sparks, working with a great team.
Kerry grew up in Sparks, attending Dilworth Middle School and graduating from Sparks High School.
And used to make my way in the ninth grade to go to Sparks High School every day. And I would walk by this building, which was then painted blue, as it is today it's white. And I always wondered what went on in that building. And as my career went on, I became an engineering intern at the City of Reno. And that's where I got my kind of calling into government service. Got a degree in civil engineering and then worked in 3 other governments before getting an opportunity to come back to the City of Sparks as their public works director in the early 1990s. So I guess for a kid who grew up here and walked down Prater Way, I've now found out what goes on in this building.
Kerry proved instrumental in bringing about several improvements to Sparks. Through Kerry's leadership, the Sparks Marina, Golden Eagle Regional Park, and the Legends Mall have all become Sparks landmarks.
You know, the job of city manager has given me the opportunity to grow. And I think that it's given me an opportunity to be a leader and to bring out the best in some of the people that I've been privileged to work with. And I'm a leader of a team. I have a police chief, I have a fire chief, I have a community services director, and we work really well together as a team. We make team decisions and we put what the council is setting as priorities first. So being able to be a leader has been a real thrill over the last 14 years, and being able to focus on outcomes. Yes, the day-to-day's got to work, but you also got to reach the goals that are out.
Steve Driscoll joined the City of Sparks in 1994 as a budget analyst. He became the administrator of the Sparks Municipal Court and was later appointed Assistant City Manager. Then, in March of 2014, Mr. Driscoll was appointed City Manager by Sparks Mayor Gino R. Martini and confirmed by the City Council.
But having said that, I would like to recommend Steve Driscoll as our next manager.
Driscoll is